Notre Dame fans, welcome back to Irish Breakdown. My name is Brian Driscoll. I'm the publisher at irishbreakdown.com. Joined today by that guy, our football analyst, Vince D'Addario. And Vince, today we're going to talk about Notre Dame's football practice. We had our second and final full practice of the season. So just a reminder, Notre Dame's going to have about 25 practices this year. Sorry, I banged my head on the wall when I was trying to go get some water before the show started and had a little paint on my hat. But so we get 2 open practices. That's it of the 25. And then what is it, like 5 30-minute sessions, which is like stretching and
we have 2 more of those
individuals.
basically.
So we have 2 more of those. So this is basically the last real look we're going to get at the Notre Dame football team. So we had to get all hands on deck today. So Vince, you were there. One of your former offensive line coaches was there. We had him down there so he could kind of watch the offensive line. You got a chance to meet Mike Hutton today.
Yeah.
Who, for those of you who don't know, is a newest addition to the Irish Breakdown team, one of 2 that we've hired. Mike is now our full-time beat writer at irishbreakdown.com, which is possible because of all of you that have helped us. I told you, if you guys help us grow, we'll reinvest into Irish Breakdown, and we're going to grow this thing. Beat writer step 1. We got to keep growing, and then we can go out and get a full-time person to cover recruiting and do all those types of things. So anyway, back to practice.
It was great. I will say having a team of guys there under the IB, brand was awesome. I mean, it was just like, hey, man, you get this and you get this, and and it wasn't just me talking to myself. So that was really good. People didn't think I was like schizophrenic. So I appreciate that.
Yes.
But it was great to have those guys. They did a tremendous job today as well. It was so nice to be able to focus on what I was focusing on and let those guys focus on their thing and then just bringing it all together. So it was
And we were able to collaborate, and that's Vince is going to kind of share the collaboration of it all. So
yes,
Vince, it was in the stadium today.
Yes,
which always makes it more fun, which makes it easier to see everything.
Yes.
So since this is our last
50-yard line, saw everything. It was great.
Yeah. So this was our last chance to kind of really see this football team until September 5th. So let's dive in. So obviously, defensively, you thought the defense was the more productive unit today, which is interesting because a lot of my intel has been the offense has been the one riding a hot wave recently. So I like to see that back and forth, right? You don't want one side dominating the other. Today, it was the defense, and it started up front, Vince. And I'll say one thing that people have to understand about the last week, as we've been told about how well the offense is doing, the defense hasn't exactly been at its full strength up front. They've held Jason Adamiola out. They've held limited. They've limited Kurt Hinish.
Explain that.
Because they're now 2 weeks into camp, and it's kind of like, okay, we know Kurt Hinish is what Kurt Hinish is. Jason Adamiola is having a great camp. So what they're doing is they're picking days to say, hey, look, we're gonna pull back the reps on these couple guys, give some of the younger guys some opportunity, so we don't wear guys out in fall camp. You don't do it all in one day. You just, okay, today we're going to give these 2 guys a little bit of a breather. Tomorrow we'll give this guy, that kind of thing. And then, of course, Myron Tungavaloa was out. He was back home in Hawaii with his family after his father passed away. Well, today, Vince, the D-line was back to full strength.
Yes.
And it was impressive.
And I will say that it appeared the guy they were kind of holding out was Josh Lugg. And
now,
so
Brian Kelly said in the post-game thing that he had a little bit of a neck issue, so that's why he was limited today.
And he went into the locker room at one point, but when he came back out, like he wasn't flanked by trainers or anything. So it's like maybe just maybe a number 2.
It's like a lot of like a lot of camp things. It's if it was a game, you'd be fine, but
exactly
2 weeks in the fall camp. Josh Lugg's having a really good fall camp from everyone that we talked to. You've seen him.
Yep.
So but the defensive line today, Vince, you said was really impressive. The one guy that stood out, and I want to talk about him first, Vince, because he was a player that in our preseason intel we said needed to have a big camp because he didn't play great in the spring, but he had a strong summer and he needs to really step up to stay in the rotation. That is sophomore Reilly Mills. Both you and Chris, who's the offensive line coach that was with us today, both talked to me about 99. 99 was dominant.
Yeah. Reilly Mills was just so fast today. He's living in the backfield when they were doing 11 on 11. I was very, very impressed. I was looking over Chris's notes. He did very, very well in one-on-ones as well. But he's so fast off the ball, and I think that's where when you're a guy like him, being fast off the ball when he's already so long is so important. And he was today, man. There was a play. It was over the offense's right side. So he was playing on the left side. So he was going against Kane Madden. And he got into the backfield so fast, I don't think Kane Madden was even out of his stance. Like it was, and I'm not necessarily knocking Kane Madden at this juncture. But what I'm saying is
we'll get to that, right?
Yeah, we'll get to that. But what I am saying is that Reilly Mills was so fast out of his stance and getting into the backfield. Jack Cohn didn't have a prayer. Like there was nothing that Jack Cohn could have done. He didn't even have time to throw it away. Like that's how fast Reilly Mills was in the backfield on that particular play. And everybody that I was sitting around was like, oh wow. Like it took everybody aback a little bit. And so that's really, really good to see as well. I mean, that was really, really good to see.
And that's a position you and I have talked about. That 3 technique is very important for Notre Dame this year. And we're at the point now where I'm listening. So like you and I are talking and it's like, this guy was good and this guy was good. And it was almost kind of like you said, a throw, like, oh yeah, Jason Adamiola dominated again.
Right.
It's like it was like such a nonchalant, like, well, of course, it's obviously, which is again, he's got to now prove it on Saturdays, but it just speaks to how good he was in the spring and how good he's been in fall camp. It seems like every single time we have an open session, like, oh yeah, by the way, Jason Adamiola dominated every rep. I talked to someone about an intel. Oh yeah, the guards can't block Jason Adamiola.
Right.
And you saw it again today, Vince.
No question. Jason, again, his quickness is different because he's not obviously as long as like a Reilly Mills, for example. He's thicker, he's bigger, so he almost uses his power and quickness to do what he needs to do, right? So it's a different way to get into the backfield, but he was living in the backfield too. I mean, he was dominant today, and expectedly so. Again, like you said, it was, oh yeah, and Jason was the man. And another thing that I noticed from him was how good he was as far as being a leader as well. He was an emotional leader on that front, like getting guys to follow him, getting guys excited. The whole defensive front was fired up. I mean, let's be honest, they were having a day. I'm sure the next guy we're going to talk about is Myron Tagovailoa-Amosa.
Just go ahead and just go. Just go.
Those two guys next to each other.
Real quick, Vince, you don't need me to necessarily lead you into each guy. If you want to just like defensive line, just literally just go. Yeah. I mean, that's what people want. They don't need my questions. They want to hear how it went today.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, seeing those two guys next to each other is going to be fun throughout the entire season. They were wreaking havoc today. I thought with that lessened weight that MTA is carrying, I thought that he looked really, really good, just fast off the ball, just faster with his hands, being on the outside than he was on the inside. I'm really starting to believe that he is more of a defensive end than he was a defensive tackle, and that's saying something because he was successful as a defensive tackle. I mean, he's a starter, right? But I think he's kind of found his niche. And when they were going with a 3 front, they took Kurt Heinisch out and they had Jason kind of playing the nose in that neighborhood, right? Nose 1 kind of in the middle. And then having Isaiah Foskey and MTA on the outside, so much speed, just so fast, so athletic. It was the front had a really good day. Let's put it that way. It was very impressive.
I'm looking at the notes that I got from you guys from practice, and there's one session where it's 4 straight plays. It goes sack, screen, sack.
Yeah,
like that's, and then it's like short run, loss of yards, incompletion, sack, loss of yards. I mean, this is succession of plays from today's scrimmage. Loss of yards. I mean, so it seems like it was just like you said, it was kind of a meet me in the backfield party today.
It really was.
And then the notes, there's so many more notes for the defensive line today. There's a practice report at irishbreakdown.com, but you've used Justin Adamiola as another guy. So when he was first hurt, I was told it could potentially be up to 2 weeks.
He was back a lot faster than I thought.
He was back a lot faster than I thought. And then I got nervous, like, okay, are they pushing him too much? But you said he had one of the more impressive athletic plays of the day.
Yes.
So team, or was it one-on-ones or team?
No, it was team.
Okay.
It was during team, and he was playing the second Viper.
Let me interject. So according to you, Vince, too, today it sounded like there was a lot of work on the 3 down.
Yeah, there was.
They were getting the Vipers a lot of
work in the field.
Right. So they weren't really so you're not going to hear a lot about Foskey pass rushing and Justin Adamiola pass rushing because a lot of that was.
Every time I noticed number 7, he was kind of in coverage. He was back off the line. Yeah. There was one time where he did rush the quarterback, but it was from the inside. So he was off the line of scrimmage. There was 3 down linemen, and he kind of sneaks up like over the guard, to kind of give a different look. And then he kind of rushed the passer from that angle, right? So
clearly that's a point of emphasis in today's practice today. So I just want to make sure when you don't hear us talking about those guys getting a pass rush, that's because for the most part they weren't. So anyway, back to that. I'm just trying to set the stage based on what you told me so people understand why are we hearing about these guys in coverage.
Right. So continue. One of the things that you wanted me to look for, and I was going to look for anyway, was what number 9, Justin Adamiola, looked like, because he's coming off a hamstring, right? I mean, that will potentially limit you in your athleticism, your speed, your quickness, etc. There was a play during 11-on-11, and he was playing Viper. Like I said, he's running with the number 2 Viper, as the number 2 Viper right now. There was a play where Kyron Williams comes out of the backfield and basically runs a wheel route, coming out of the backfield, right down the sideline. That's the Vipers' man. And in the covers that they had, it was 1-on-1. And Justin Adamiola stayed with Kyron Williams step for step down the sideline and forced an incompletion. I couldn't tell if it was a PBU or not, a pass breakup, but he was right in Kyron's face. Kyron went up for it. I thought at first he came down with it, but he didn't, because Justin was right there in his face. I mean, it was a contested catch opportunity, and it just shows that I don't believe Justin is ailing from that hamstring at all based on that particular play. I mean, he was step for step with one of the best running backs in the country. And so that was really, really impressive. And it wasn't like it was a bad throw that slowed up Kyron or, anything of that nature. It's because it was really good coverage. And so as long as there's nothing that in the future happens, I'm not worried about that hamstring with Justin Adamiola at this point.
Again, it's just preventing a re-aggravation. And I was looking through the notes, Vince, too. You talked about Reilly Mills earlier. From what we're seeing, he was playing a lot, mixing up 3-tech and 5 technique. And if you remember from our Football 101 video, 5 technique is essentially it's a tight outside shade to the tackle.
Right.
So it's like what a 3-4 defensive end, essentially. So with them working on 3 down today, it appears that we saw a lot more of 57 and 99 playing outside. And as I'm looking at the notes, I see on one particular play that Reilly Mills beat Tosh Baker in a 1-on-1, which means he was lined up over tackle. So there was some of that too. So that was also nice to see, is that he is moving around, which means there are times you can get Reilly Mills and Jason Adamiola and Myron Tagovailoa on the field together.
Right, absolutely. And you could even have Isaiah Foskey still out there as well, just back off in coverage,
which is what we saw today.
May be. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was really good. We do have a super chat, Brian. If you wanted to go ahead and grab that, yeah.
J Premier BK33 just with a nice $9.99 super chat. I appreciate that very, very much, Jay. Absolutely, and
it's good stuff.
Obviously, man. Vince giving a lot of great info today, so I appreciate that. Appreciate that very, very much.
Yes, thank you very, very much. So, overall defensive line. I mean, in the 2 open practices that we've seen, they've just been really good. And again, I heard somebody from the media say, I hope this is the best defensive line in the country, based on how they're playing, referring to the offensive line. People they're worried about the offensive line because of how well the defensive line is playing. Now, I will say, I think it's a little bit of both.
Right. Because we had this same conversation in 2017, Vince. I hope this is the best offensive line they play, because this defensive line can't stop anybody.
Right, exactly.
That's how it was in fall camp of 2017. And it turns out, that's actually the best offensive line in the country.
Right. So, exactly. I think it's a little bit of both right now. And we'll get into the offense in a minute, but the defensive line was just playing. They were pretty much doing what they wanted to do. And they were having success. So it was fun to watch.
Think about this. Today's practice, the 3rd team defense, if I'm correct, was some combination of Jordan Patelho, Nana Osafo-Mensah, Gabriel Rubio, Jacob Lacey, and Aiden Keanaaina, essentially. Correct?
Yeah, that sounds
now, they're
right.
working in with the 2s, but they're the 3rd guy that would be getting in. Those are all highly ranked recruits.
Right.
And those are all 4-star kids that were highly ranked recruits, and some of them, Alexander Ahrensburger was another one that was getting some of that. You said he had a good 90. Day today.
He did. He had a great.
That's another day where he's flashed.
Yep.
So my point is that speaks volumes to the fact that it's not just, they're great because they have that one guy, Jason Adamiola. It's not good. They got this future. It's just they're throwing waves of guys to make plays. we had this in a recent Intel piece, but I was told, I think it was in the Intel piece, I think I said this, but I've been told by a source that said that Jason Ademiola's been Notre Dame's best defensive in camp. He's playing better than any defensive lineman since Jerry Tiller in 2018.
That's big praise.
When Jerry Tiller's an All-American that year.
Yeah, that's
right?
big praise.
I mean, so it just kind of.
I've seen nothing,
and it's been consistent.
Not believe that.
Because what our advice to you all is look for themes. Because there's going to be some guy has a good day here, not a great day. If you're seeing something consistently happen, that's when you can start putting stock in it. Not just, well, this guy had a great day or this guy had a down day, right? So like Kyle Hamilton didn't seem to have not a bad day, but just not a great day.
Yeah, not a great day.
Well, okay, agreed. That's fine because we saw plenty of other times where Kyle Hamilton's out there balling, right? So that's the thing is when you hear this about, we've now heard it about Mills consistently, and of course Jason Ademiola consistently. When you start hearing those things consistently, that's when you start saying, okay, we expect this guy to be good. And Justin Ademiola, getting him back is good too. I was told the first 3 or 4 days of practice before he got hurt that he was just making a ton of plays. So to see him back, see him in coverage, making plays is obviously a good thing as well, Vince. But any other thoughts from the defensive line before we transition to the linebackers and get more of this info out there?
Let's see. Looking at my notes here. No, not really. Not from the defensive line. Yeah, let's move. Let's go to linebackers.
Yeah. So you said to start today's practice, a linebacker was Drew White.
Oh yeah. He look. Drew White is maybe he's not going to make the flashy plays or maybe not the plays that maybe fans think that he should be making or whatever. He did have a tackle for a loss, at least one that I saw, and he just got up from the pile and walked back to the other side of the ball. Like it's just. Now, we've seen him get fired up. Don't get me wrong. But the thing about him is that he was just everywhere the ball was in the run game. I have in my notes right here, 40 looks good, always around the ball. Like every time I looked up where the ball was, there was 40. Like he's just that's what a middle linebacker is supposed to be. You know, there's ball, go get ball. Like that's what he's supposed to be. That's what he's doing. And he's really cementing himself as the middle linebacker. I just thought he had a really good day today. Again, nothing flashy, but he's just doing his job, which if people remember, he wasn't doing his job last year because he was covering for another position.
That was the knock on him last year. He was out of position. He wasn't hitting the gaps. He was overrunning plays, things like that. Because
I didn't see that today.
Right.
I didn't see that today. I saw him around the football. I saw him making plays on the football. I thought Drew White had a very, very, very good day. And again, I know he was named a captain, but it's clear that he's one of the leaders on this team as well. I know people like to hear what goes on off the field, that kind of thing. No question that Drew White is a leader on this team. No question whatsoever.
Now, you said another guy that stood out to you today, more so during the 7-on-7, 1-on-1 period, because we didn't see him. You didn't see him much during the team period, but Jack Kaiser, you said, had a really good day in coverage today.
Yeah,
which is interesting for me, Vince, because we know he can play the run. Right? We know that. It's how is he going to handle the coverage part? So
that's where
he looked at it.
That's where he jumped out at me today. I'm thinking back, and I'm because I'm watching different things with the defense. I'm kind of watching different levels and things of that nature. And when 24 jumped out at me, it was watching him in coverage, and it was watching Jack Cohn throw the ball away because it was such good coverage. Right. And obviously that's more than just Jack Kaiser, but Jack Kaiser was generally on like the dump down guy or, the short guy, because he's a linebacker, obviously. And it would be one of the final reads for Jack Cohn, which would then just get thrown out of bounds. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I noticed Kaiser, and Kaiser did a great job in coverage. I think he can hang with tight ends. Obviously, I think he can hang with running backs. I don't think that's going to be a problem. He'll get help with slot guys, things of that nature.
Yeah, against slots, he'll be rerouting and things like that. They won't be saying, hey, go cover. Yeah, go cover Avery Davis all over the field.
Right? And nobody's expecting that of him, right? So, but I was very impressed with him in coverage. He was right where he needed to be all the time, which was great. And speaking of the rover position, I was actually a guy that really stood out to me today was Isaiah Pryor. Mm-hmm. Isaiah Pryor was so the first time they went 11-on-11, it was like the whole touch the guy and he's down kind of thing, and the running back just keeps on going. The second time was live, and that's when Isaiah Pryor is at his finest. Mm-hmm. he was flying around the football and just laying licks on guys.
Now again, today was kind of a scrimmage team. Today
towards
was
the end,
was a scrimmage aspect, right? So there was tackling, which
so
Notre Dame doesn't do a lot of that in practice. Yeah,
about 10 minutes was live, right? It's the first time we've seen them go live. It's the first time they were really hitting each other and tackling to the ground. But Isaiah Pryor enjoyed himself. Let's just put it that way. He laid a lick on Logan Diggs at one point on a screen that he just came down just like he was fired out of a chute and just lit him up. There was another one where he had a tackle for loss where he just lit the guy up. He was everywhere. And again, he was rolling with the twos, so it was against the twos, but you still got to find the ball. You still got to get to the ball. You still got to make a tackle. You still got to make a hit. And the hits that he was making were like, ooh, they were punishing tackles. And I haven't seen a punishing tackle live in quite some time. And I enjoyed watching Isaiah Pryor today.
And that's his wheelhouse, playing downhill.
Yes.
And that's what I'm happy to hear that from him for sure. Now again, Maris Luafau, you said Bo Bauer, those are guys that just had nothing spectacular, just solid days,
just doing their thing. Again, Maris likes to talk,
which I like. I mean, you and I think
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, we were in the rich seats, right? The nice like padded seats, like in the stands, right? So I was like 4 rows away from the field. And pretending like I was rich, it was nice. But like
you'll never ever sit in those seats during a game,
no,
ever.
But he's on the sideline. It's the twos that are in there, right? He's on the sideline, and he's chirping at the offense. He's like, "You're not going to try that when I'm in there." It's just it was good stuff. Like it was good natured, but like he was serious, and it was good. I enjoyed him today.
Now, from our conversations. Go ahead, Vince. No, again, what?
I was going to say, again, he didn't make like spectacular plays like he did last Thursday, but he's clearly the starter.
So was it just the ball wasn't around him?
Yeah.
Is that why? Okay.
Yeah. They didn't really go towards, first of all, not a lot of time because of the defensive front. So not a lot got out of there. And number 2, when they were throwing the ball around, it just wasn't really going near him. Like it was balls that were downfield. It was more intermediate stuff that he just wasn't responsible for. So he wasn't just really in the mix today. With the stuff that they were doing.
So today, according to you from our conversation, right? So when I say things like this, I'm actually repeating what Vince said to lead him into what he's already told me. Today, it sounds like we saw exactly why J.D. Bertrand's getting so many number 2 reps and why Shane Simon is not. Explain.
Yes. Okay. So J.D. Bertrand kind of falls into the same category to me as Drew White. And I'm not saying that just because they're white linebackers. Like, that's not my point. What I am saying is he's around the football. Like, he is in the right place. He's making plays. He's coming downhill. He's laying the wood on guys. Like, he's involved, right? Shane Simon, we saw a lot of today anyway. And I'll put it in a box today because I'm not at practice every day. When it was live, I saw a lot of last year's Shane Simon where he would kind of over pursue a little bit and just get caught in the wash.
Right.
He wasn't able to really block destruct. He wasn't able to fight those guys off and make a play. He was a lot of the times on the outside looking in, and that's why he was going up against the threes. Like it was disappointing to me because I know he's better than that. We've seen him better than that. But if that's what the coaches are seeing day in and day out when they're going 11 on 11 and things of that nature, I get why he's running with the threes right now.
And that's what we've been told about. JD's just playing downhill, making plays, and Shane's still just not decisive enough, getting caught, getting blocked, making himself too blockable.
Yes.
And until that changes, he's going to have a hard time because, again, it isn't – what we're seeing is he hasn't necessarily made a big jump from what we've seen in the fall, but Maris and JD have made a big jump from
Absolutely. And you can see it, right? It's kind of like – so Shane Simon's right here. He make plays every once in a while, but but what I talked about,
clearly athletic when you watch drills, right?
And those other guys have just while he stays here, these guys are ascending and they're passing him up. I mean, it's like the slow person when you're on the highway. You just gotta get, it just is what it is. So it's not like he's getting worse or anything, but he's just getting passed up because those guys are playing at such a high level.
And from what I'm told, he has been better than he was last year. It's just not enough to hold off other athletic, talented players that are passing him up. So
right.
Safety today. So obviously Kyle Hamilton, didn't see a whole lot from him during today's practice. Actually, we got a little super chat here we'll get to from Scott Gibbs. Thank you, Scott, for that.
Scott,
very, very much. Appreciate you. No question about it. But so today, Vince, you had said that one of the things that you saw, obviously, Kyle Hamilton didn't play a ton. I'm going through the one-on-one reps. He wasn't in there. I think he had like one rep. Not much team, had the neck thing. So, again, you know who Kyle Hamilton is. But you said, obviously, with him being limited, a guy that you thought really stepped up and played well was Houston Griffith.
It was, from the safety position, it was the Houston Griffith show. Here's what I noticed about Houston Griffith. Way more vocal than I remember him being in the past. Moving guys around, changing coverages. They did a lot of like formation recognition today. Which is really boring to the naked eye, but you understand why they're doing it, right? The scout team comes out in different formations. The defense has to recognize it, change things up, move guys around, things of that nature. Mm-hmm. He was the leader in that backfield, that defensive backfield. Very vocal, very communicative. I was very impressed with that. And then when they went to 11 on 11, there was one play where it was a screen pass to Chris Tyree, and it was out in the flat. But it was definitely a screen because you could tell by the way Jack Cohn was backing up, and then he just kind of, did one of these over the top. And Chris Tyree he caught it, but about 3 milliseconds after he caught it, a freight train with the number 3 on it just absolutely destroyed Chris Tyree. And it's not Chris Tyree's fault. He caught the ball with his back to the defense because he had to, and then just got lit up. It was a great recognition play by Houston Griffith. And what I will also say is if he didn't make that play, Chris Tyree was running for at least 10 to 15 yards because it was about 5 yards down the field already. And there was nobody else around. All of a sudden, you just saw this streak of white lightning coming down and with a number 3 on it and just, lit him up. It was a great tackle. It was great recognition. It was him coming downhill at full speed. It was awesome. And it's what I've been waiting to see from Houston Griffith. I'll be honest. That's what I've been waiting to see. Both the talking and the playmaking. We saw it today, and it was really great. And it was even better because, like you said, Kyle Hamilton wasn't playing. Right?
There will be times this year when Kyle Hamilton's not on the field. They're not going to play him 100% of the snaps.
Right. And Houston Griffith needs to be the guy back there. He needs to be able to take control, and he did. Mm-hmm. And I was very, very impressed. I was very, very impressed with him today.
Couple things, Vince. Here we got a super chat from Robert. Robert, we will get to this.
We absolutely will.
When we get to the offensive part. I want to get to that. Yeah. But I also had another question, Vince, that I actually wanted to answer. Clint Duggar says, I would like to hear the answer to OC Irish fan at question 258. That I was getting ready to get there. So, but hey, I'm actually glad I stalled a little bit because you hit us up with a super chat, Clint, which I appreciate. But I want to address this, Vince. OC Irish fan says, Vince, could you sense any adjustments in the offense to counter the effectiveness of the defensive line? Always felt that was a shortcoming in the past. I want to address this. You don't do that in practice.
Not in practice.
That's not what the point of a practice is. The point of a practice is to say there's something we're working on today. Today we're going to work on third down. Today we're going to work on our inside zone. Today we're going to work on our counters. You're not out there trying to beat the defense per se. Now, obviously, you want to be successful and beat the defense. But there are times in practice, Vince, when you're working on something, they're working on something, but what they're working on is going to be kryptonite to what you're working on. And that's okay.
Right.
That's a good thing.
Yes.
One of the issues that I felt was a problem of this offense in the past is far too often they scripted for success, meaning they would kind of put the defense in the positions where, okay, we're going to do this. And so the offense would work on blitz beaters on the day that they knew the defense was working on blitzes. That's fine to a degree. But I would rather you not work on that, so that way your quarterback and your linemen and those kind of guys know how to handle it when you don't have a blitz beater called or you don't have the blitz queued up. So sometimes in the practice, like, we got our butts kicked a little bit, but that's okay because they were throwing stuff at us that we hadn't really seen a lot of. You don't adjust like, hey, we're going to run a reverse bootleg to beat that. Right. That's not what you're trying to accomplish in practice today. So I want people to understand that we don't know necessarily what the offense is working on. As I'm looking at the notes, it sounds like there was a mostly zone today, right? So you don't have your whole repertoire of offense on day 12 of practice, to go out there and be successful. So it's okay. That's going to happen sometime. So I don't want people to to kind of think like, well, gee, why didn't Tommy Rees make adjustments to when they were getting their butts kicked? Because that's not the point of practice.
Right. I will say at one point they were getting hammered. I mean, the offensive line was getting hammered by the defense, and they brought, I don't know if it was an all-out blitz, but they brought a couple linebackers as well, and Cone just kind of snuck one out. They snuck, I can't remember if it was Tyree or Williams, unfortunately. They're both so good with the ball in their hands. They just kind of snuck them and was replaced where the linebacker was, and Cone just hit him, and they gained like 25 yards.
Right.
Because, and which is an adjustment, but I think it was kind of an accidental adjustment. But see,
that's the point. That's what
exactly.
I've never been in a practice where we said, boy, we're getting our butts kicked today. Let's get off of what our plan was.
Right.
Because we don't want to get beat in practice 12 of 25 before the first game of the year. It just doesn't work like that. These aren't scrimmages in the traditional sense that you'd have in high school or at the Division III level, because we actually had regular season scrimmages in D3. Where you'd go against another team. It's not that kind of scrimmage. It's, hey, we're working on our stuff, and now we're going to go against the first team defense while working on our stuff. So I just want people to understand that every team goes into a practice with an agenda. Today, we're focusing on this. Now, there will be some days where they will be focusing on blitz speeders, and Marcus Freeman may say to Tom Rees, hey, look, let me know when you guys want to work on when you guys want to work on your blitz beaters, because, we want to work on our blitzes, and I kind of want, I want to see how our guys handle those
what
things.
happens when they're, exactly.
And so you'll communicate that way sometimes. But just because we're saying, hey, the defense dominated today doesn't mean the offense sucks, because what I was told from multiple sources on both sides of the ball on this past weekend, it was the offense that was taking it to the defense. We just happened to see on a day where the defense was dominating, and that's how you want camp to be.
Absolutely.
If the offense was out there putting in work on the defense on a daily basis, I'd start getting real nervous about this defense, and I don't care how good the offense is going to be. So people have to understand that. And a lot of the drills that you saw today, Vince, are geared towards the defense, except for one-on-one. That's more of an offensive drill.
And I will also say, we're focused on the defense right now, and we're going to talk about the offense. So
there's definitely some good things to say about the offense.
There's things to say about the offense. They had plays made, and I'm excited.
And what we have been telling you all for months is this is going to be one of the best defensive lines in the country.
Exactly.
It just is.
Yeah, right.
Keep that in mind as we're going through this. So anyway, back on track, Vince. So you had noticed, you had said obviously DJ Brown had a solid day today. Any other safeties kind of stand out to you in practice today?
What was it?
See anything from Justin Walters or KJ Wallace? Any of those guys? 16 or 20?
On the wrong side of my notes. Yeah,
maybe 22, 29.
So KJ Wallace was starting on safety with the second group, and I thought he had a pretty good day today. He had a very, very, very athletic interception. It was a tip ball in the end zone, and he caught it with one hand as it was about to hit the ground. And there was a ref right in front of him, said it was a good catch. It was a touchback situation. So I thought that was really, really impressive. I thought Justin Walters actually played pretty well. He had an interception today. I thought he played well. So the young guys are coming to play. I can tell you that. Philip Reilly, I thought had a good day today. There was a point where Ramon Henderson made a mistake, and then I'm trying to remember the sequence of events. He made a mistake, and then Philip Reilly goes in for him. He tips the ball, and that's the one that Justin Walters intercepted, I do believe, off the top of my head. So he went in, immediately makes a play. I mean, it was fantastic.
And I saw in the one-on-one notes that Lorenzo Styles Jr. beat Philip Reilly for a touchdown in red zone, but you have on there, it was clearly good coverage. It was a great ball and a great catch by Lorenzo Styles. That's going to happen.
And again, in one-on-ones, it's set up for the offense to be successful. I mean, it just is. And, you can get shook in space. I mean, there's all these different things that the offense can do to the defense in one-on-ones. But the defense hung tough. I mean, they were there. They were making plays, but it's made for the offense to be successful, for sure.
And then I have here on notes, I have the offense of the 17 red zone one-on-one reps. You have the offense scored on 10 of the 17. There was one play that was a drop, or actually two drops during that period of time. I was told the other day so that's a pretty good day for the defense to stop them on almost half the reps. I was told again the other day, as an example, I was told the offense scored on them in the team period, scored almost every time that they got the ball against the defense. So there's going to be that when you're a good team, There's going to be back and forth. There's going to be days where one side of the ball gets over the other. So I'm saying this because I'm reading the comments and I'm seeing a lot of panicking about the offense.
Okay.
That's what camp is like. You're going to have – look, I was on a national championship team and we were fueled by our offense and our pass game. There were some days where we could not complete a pass in fall camp, okay? It's going to happen, okay? So
and you've had practice every day.
And we're hearing different reports on different days. One day it's the offense, one day – and that's part of the deal. So
and it was hot today too.
And right now we're focusing on the defense. So we're focusing on the positives of the defense. Now we'll get to one that's a little bit start talking about the offense. Right. Cam Hart, you said nobody else can catch it. The only person that can catch a pass on Cam Hart's Kevin Austin. Right. What you told me. The question that I asked you, Vince, and I'm going to ask it now so people can hear the question because I thought your answer was great. We talked about Cam Hart. My question was, is he just getting beat by Kevin Austin or is he there? And it's a combination of Austin making great catches, and the quarterback's making great throws. Like, why is that the one guy that can beat Cam Hart?
Yeah, so Cam Hart is living in Kevin Austin's back pocket. I mean, he's right there. He's his shadow, for goodness sakes. He's not getting shook. He's not getting beat. It's not like his guy is getting released and it's a coverage bust. It's just that Kevin Austin's that good. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but that's just the case. And there's a lot of other good receivers on this team, and nobody else is manhandling Cam Hart like Kevin Austin. Manhandling is not the right word. I don't want
making plays.
But Kevin Austin is just making plays. I think people are going to be genuinely excited when they watch Kevin Austin play the game of football. I mean, he's
knock on wood for him being healthy enough to get to that point.
100% agree. 100% agree. But he's making so many plays right now in camp that I feel sorry for whoever's guarding him, and 9 times out of 10, it's Cam Hart. It just is what it is, and Cam Hart I think is having a good camp. I don't know what your sources are telling you, but I feel like Cam Hart's having a good camp.
I mean, that's what they've been telling me. Like his coverage has been really good. Nobody else can complete a pass on him except Kevin Austin.
Right, and so if that's the case, that's just going to make Cam Hart better.
Right,
when it comes down to when the regular season starts. So I don't want people to freak out because Cam Hart's probably your number one corner right now. At least that's what I'm seeing when I watch this team. In the few opportunities that I've had, he's the number one guy. There's only one guy beating him, and it's the number one guy on the offense, and he'd be the number one guy on pretty much anybody's offense right now. So it's kind of a give and take, like you said. But I still like what Cam Hart's bringing to the table. I really do.
So let's transition to the offense and let's talk about the receivers. Just overall, Vince, what did you see? Now, again, today your focus was mostly on the defense.
Right.
Because and part of this too is we haven't talked a lot about the defense because when Vince is at most of the practices, they're in the indoor facility. The media is where the offense is, but then the defense leaves, goes outside on a different field. And so obviously in those instances that you can't really see what's going on.
It's a pain in the neck because they have 3 different fields they're working on, and the defense plays on the middle field. Like there's by the time
you could get down there and walk around to the defense, those periods are over. So
and they don't let you in between the fields. You can only go on the perimeter outside. So it's very frustrating.
So we wanted to focus on the defense a lot today, but you did have some observations about the offense, obviously during a lot, because a lot of these times were offense going against defense, and then obviously Chris was there watching the offensive line. So sounds like Jarrett Patterson had a pretty good day. We'll get to the offensive line here in a little bit, but I do want to talk about the skill players first. Let me just get this real quick. John A1 with the super chat. John, thank you very, very much.
What's up, John?
Says this show is awesome. Just joining today. Was the energy high at practice today? What can the staff do to keep guys' energy at a high level? Did Nana or Alex Ahrensburger flash at all? So first, Vince, I want to talk about just the energy level, but also and why that's such an important thing to evaluate 12 practices, because we are now starting really, I'd say probably Tuesday into Monday or Tuesday. This is the hardest part of fall camp. That middle period of fall camp.
To drag.
Well, and you're also, this is the part where you kind of push them to their breaking point and find out where that is, and then you pull back. So this is going to be the grueling part of practice.
Yes.
And obviously today it's in South Bend. It's a little hot outside today, a little humid outside today.
It's 88. I mean,
and humid. We've had a lot more humidity this summer than we normally do.
Yeah.
So
great
Vince,
prep for Florida State.
Yes. So I want to get the answer to that first part of the question is what was the energy level like today?
The energy level has been high in every practice that I've been to, and it's led by So on defense, it's led by MTA. It's led by Jason Adamiola. It's led by Drew White. It's led by Kyle Hamilton. Even though Kyle Hamilton, I do want to note this. Even though Kyle Hamilton wasn't in a lot of plays, he was on the sideline coaching guys up, number one, and number two, cheering them on. Like he got hype when Walters made his interception, like threw a water bottle in the air, like. It's hype right now, I'm telling you. So defensively, there's a bunch of guys hyping everybody up. Of course, offensively, Kyron Williams is the big hype man. Patterson is the kind of the leader on the offensive line. He gets those guys fired up. Braden Lenzy, I mean, he was. I think he came out of the womb talking, right? I mean, he's just a guy that is a fired up guy. So I mean, there's the energy is very, very high at practice,
which is great. Has not always been the case. For Notre
That's
Dame.
True. That is a very true.
There's been a lot of I'd say forced enthusiasm in the past.
Sure,
but honestly, John and Vince, you can just what Vince is saying, what we've talked about, talking to sources. That's not and just from our coaching experience, you can't force that.
Nope.
You can't force MTA to act the way he does. You can't sit down with Jason Adamiola and say, look, I know you're a quiet personality, but we need you to talk more. It doesn't work. Right. It's just like you don't go to Kurt Heinz and say, hey, man, we need you to calm down. You need to they got to be themselves, right? Exactly. And so when you look at Marist, and that's just who Marist is, but that's what you want, because then here's the reason why that's important. You want to know, I loved it when defensive players would talk trash and get my guy's face, because you know what I was going to find out? I was going to find out what kind of guts that my kids had. Okay, he's going to get in your face. One of three things is going to happen. Number one is you're going to put your head down and just be defeated. Right. I just learned that you're not a guy I can go to battle with.
Right.
Number two, you're going to chirp back and get you out of your game, and then now you're not making plays because you're so worried about talking that you're not. Or a guy's going to have a response, whether verbal or nonverbal, of okay, you want to run your mouth? Here we go.
Let's go. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So I think those are the things that is great for practice.
Yes.
You have to, but it has to be natural. It can't be forced, right? And so that's that part of this energy level is it's a confident team, but it's a team that has a lot of guys that have no Kyron Williams. If Kyron Williams is on the field and at practice, there's going to be energy on offense.
Absolutely.
It just is. If Marist Luafau and Jason Adamiola and Myron Tungavaloa and Kyle Hamilton are at your practice, there's going to be energy on defense.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important thing.
Yep.
So, John's question was, what can the staff do to keep guys' energy at a high level? There's recruit the right players.
I was just going to say that. You got to recruit the right dudes.
No, it's a serious answer because, again, especially in camp, you can't force that.
Right.
Just like you can't force confidence on your team in the fourth quarter against Alabama. They either have it or they don't. Yeah, and it's about recruiting the right players, but then also putting those players in position to lead by example. And I think one of the things that we've seen in the past is sort of a tamping down of that energy. And these coordinators aren't that way. Marcus Freeman, as you saw today, is a talkative dude.
Oh yeah.
Tommy Rees is a competitive dude.
Oh yeah.
I have heard that there has been a lot of fun trash talking between the offense and defense, and I mean fun like in a good way.
Yeah.
Well, that's Tommy Rees. Did you watch him play? Say what you want about whatever things about but Tommy Rees was a dude that played with some intensity.
Yep.
And he coaches with intensity, and but it's not the same kind of tear you down. Like I've said this before. From what I've been told, Tommy's a young coach. There are times that I've heard he's ripped into guys when I'd say, yeah, you can't do that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about coaching with energy, coaching with enthusiasm, and he does that.
Yep.
Marcus Freeman does that. So that's part of it too, is as a coach, what can the staff do? Lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's something that you can do. You ever wonder why the defense flew around to the ball so much the last 3 years? Because Clark Lee made every coach run from drill to drill. If the players are going to be asked to do it, the coaches are going to do it. Well, Marcus Freeman has an energy about him. So guys like MTA, guys like Jason Adamiola, guys like Marist Luafau, guys like Kyle Hamilton, guys like Houston Griffith are going to come out of that shell because it's not so much the intellectual thing like it used to be. It's, hey, coach is fired up. I'm fired up.
Yep.
And I think you have an offensive coordinator that's going to have a similar personality to Kevin Austin, to Braden Lenzy, to Michael Mayer, to Kyron Williams. That's going to bring that out. So as far as what the staff can do, let that energy breathe.
Yeah.
Don't put that fire out, which is something they've done in the past. They just have. And so you can be assured. So the last time I heard that the offense had a really bad practice, right, the next day, the next practice, I was told they destroyed the defense. Destroyed the defense in practice. That's what you want to see, right?
Competition.
And that tells me that the offensive coordinator got a little pissed off and was like, yeah, okay, we're going to see what you guys are made of next time.
Exactly.
So I just want people to understand that there's going to be a lot of that in fall camp. And then finally, Nana and Alex.
Nana was running with the twos. He was the backup big end, the strong end. I wonder what would happen if something happens to MTA. I would assume that Justin is going to slide back over to big end. Excuse me, but I'm not sure. And so we'll see, because obviously Justin is cross-training between both of those positions. He didn't stand out to me, but not in a good way or a bad way. Like, he wasn't getting his butt kicked or anything, and I was like, oh boy. So he didn't really stand out to me. Right. Alex did.
Chris had a note during one-on-ones, I guess, that Michael Carmody went 3 for 3 on his first 3 one-on-one reps, but Nana got him supposedly really good on the last one. Had a real nice push-pull and beat him on that. So that is the one thing that we did see from Nana today.
Perfect. Love that.
Well, we didn't see that. Y'all saw that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, well, I didn't see it either because he was down with the one-on-one.
But I'm just going through Chris's notes of what Alex, he had today. Yeah.
I thought Alex had a good day today. He was working with the threes, but he was paying rent in the backfield. I mean, he was doing a pretty good job of getting back there. Again, he's long and athletic as well, kind of in the style of a Reilly Mills, but Reilly Mills is thicker and bigger. And I think that maybe that could be Ahrensburger someday, just not yet, right? So, but they're very similar players to me. So I thought that he had a pretty good day as well. So.
Any other receivers? Oh, actually, we've got a couple more super chats here from Michael Johnson. Michael, thank you so much. Loyal listener, Michael Johnson is, and also with the super chat. I appreciate that, Michael, very, very much. And as we've said before, Michael clearly has one of the best dressed avatars that we have.
Seriously, dude, I can't hold a candle to that.
So it goes 76. Also with the super chat, thank you also very, very much for that. Season is coming soon. Getting excited. Go Irish. Keep it up, guys. Thanks for all you do. You are welcome. And I did want to show this. This was not a super chat, but I think it needs to be said. Ty B says, hey, Brian, Vince held down the fort the other day. Y'all are the best duo in the biz, IB Nation. Listen, I want to explain something to y'all, and I mean this. Right, I'm gonna make this about me for a second, right? Which some people are like, you always do that, but whatever. I'm definitely doing it this time. Irish Breakdown is my company. It's like it's my livelihood. It's my business. It's. I mean, when you hear that, it's like if you have a bad opinion of it, that reflects on me. There's a reason no one really hosts this show except for me. I've had Vince. I've asked Vince to do a show with him and Sean, and Vince do a solo show. Because there's nobody on this planet that I would trust more to be able to represent Irish Breakdown and give you all great content than that guy. I'm trying to remember how to point to you than that guy. So if I had any doubt that Vince could not hold down the fort, I just said, hey, no show today. Right. And we had to do that yesterday because Vince had a busy day at work and we were getting slammed, which is the new hires and things like that. So we knew to do show yesterday. But Vince, thank you for holding down the fort the other day after practice. I appreciate that very, very much. So
absolutely.
He certainly had my back because it wasn't expected to be a solo show. Right. But I was like, hey man, can you handle this for me? And he stepped up and got it done. So no, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the kind words, but yeah, Vince absolutely can hold down the fort. Back to receivers. Anybody else kind of stand out for you today?
So there was a play early on in the scrimmage period, and it was a play where Braden Lindsey, and so I was wrong, by the way, when I told you this earlier, Brian. It was Braden Lindsey. He got loose down the sideline, and I don't want to say he got loose, but he got in between the cover two. He found the bubble in the cover two right down the sideline there. And Jack Cohn just made a beautiful throw. I mean, just a gorgeous in stride throw to Braden Lindsey. And all he had to do is just boop. And then he was to the house, man. Like it was like everybody that was in the stadium, because there was, I don't know if it was family or some faculty, but there was some kids and stuff. They were on the other side.
Faculty and students, yeah.
They were on the other side
of the done on this day.
Yeah, they were on the other side of the stadium. Media was on our side. And everybody in the place is like, oh, oh, we want more of that. Like it was just a beautifully thrown ball. No. It was he caught it and took it to the house. Like it was.
You're like, all he had to do was this, and I'm thinking like, okay, all he had to do, but he dropped it. I'm like waiting on the negative, like,
waiting on the butt. Yeah. No, it was a perfectly executed play. There was nothing the defense could do about it. Like it was
except
perfection.
Get off the hash quicker.
Yeah, right. It was just, I was very impressed with that. Everybody around us was very impressed with that. It kind of gave a glimpse of what Braden Lindsey is kind of becoming in this offense. He's more than just a deep threat. And I know he talked about that in his recent meeting with the media. It's true. I mean, I thought his route running today was way above par.
That's never been a strength of his.
Right. I thought his route running was very good today. I thought, especially kind of down in the red zone, things of that nature where you kind of have to be more precise because you're in a shrunken area of the field. He was getting rid of guys not because of his speed, but because of his route running. Yeah. Which I was very impressed with. Yeah. I think
lethal combination.
Look, I think Braden Lindsey's going to have a big year. Again, you're going to have to keep him healthy. He's got to stay healthy. But I think he's playing with just a swagger. And I mean that in the most positive way possible.
He's got a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah. And I love that.
Can I be honest with you?
Absolutely.
The knock on Braden Lindsey from people I've talked to in the past is that they don't know if he loves football. That's just, I'm just being real with you.
Yeah.
I don't have that opinion because I don't know. I'm not around him every day.
Sure.
From talking to some of those people that are still around, that's the thing that's kind of caught people by surprise is he's got a different attitude and different outlook. Like, I think he caught wind of that criticism and was like, because I think what happens sometimes is a guy that has interests outside of football, he's got friends, he's got, I mean, there's other things that interest Braden Lindsey besides just football. A guy can kind of get falsely accused of, well, he just doesn't love football.
Sure.
Because he actually is smart and does other things and all that.
Has other interests. Like,
yeah. And I think he caught wind of that, and he kind of was pissed off yesterday when he was talking. Like he didn't have he had a swagger to him, but it wasn't like a I'm the man swagger. It was more like a wait till y'all see what I'm about to do this year swagger to him, and he's backing it up in practice.
He is.
I mean,
loved it, man.
And it's not just today. I've heard this 3 of the last 4 days. I've got intel.
Well, and one of the things
they can't guard Braden Lindsey.
Yeah, one of the things that they do during FSA, so during like the dynamic warm up period and everything. On the big jumbotron, and they've got one in the indoor facility, and they've obviously got one at the stadium. One of the things they do is they show highlights from previous practices.
Love that.
And a lot of those highlights are Braden Lindsey. Yeah. Like he's just making plays, man. I'm telling you.
Now here's the question, Vince, and I'll ask you this, and I'll share what I've been told by my sources. When I start hearing about how they can't guard Braden Lindsey, they can't guard Kevin Austin, my first thought is, okay, are the DBs just not that good?
Yeah.
So I'll ask you, and then I'll share with you kind of what my sources have told me.
I feel like the DBs are playing well. It's just they're
guarding everybody else.
I think that Clarence Lewis had a rough day today. And I'm not saying he played poorly. I just felt like he was maybe a step slow at times, whatever. So I'm not going to say everybody played well because they didn't, right? I thought Clarence Lewis had a bit of a rough day. I thought Tariq Bracy had a little bit of a rough day. But it's part of it's because of how well this offense is humming in the pass game. It just is. And so I'm not worried about it yet. I'm really not. I'm not worried about it yet because they're in good position. It's just these wide receivers are making plays. They're making plays. Avery Davis made a couple of nice plays today. Obviously Kevin Austin made plays. Braden Lindsey made plays. I feel like the offense is ahead of the defense, maybe from a skill position standpoint. Yeah. You know what I mean? I just feel that way.
And that should be something that people find comfort in.
Yeah.
And what my sources have told me of basically like, hey, do you remember fall camp of 2018? Vince, you do. I remember thinking Julian Love's going to suck this year.
Right.
Like because all spring he was Miles Boykin's you-know-what, right?
Yep.
All fall camp, Troy Pride and Miles Boykin, Julian Love got torched in practice every single day, it seemed like, by Miles Boykin and Chase Claypool.
Right.
And we're thinking, like, are these guys – because remember, this is before they had broke – like Julian had that really productive year in 2017, but Troy was just kind of a late season starter, and you're like, man, they're going to struggle at corner this year.
Right.
Come to find out, Notre Dame in 2018 had one of the 5 best cornerback tandems in all of college football. It's just that nobody else could cover Miles Boykin and Chase Claypool,
right?
Either, including Clemson.
Right.
Okay, if we want to go there again.
Yeah, we can.
Right? So from my sources, and look, there's been times in the recent years where I've had people say, yeah, our corners are struggling. They're getting beat a lot. They're just not playing well. That's not what I'm hearing from my sources. It's like, no, they're actually doing okay. It's just, these guys are – Braden Lindsey and Kevin Austin especially have separated themselves as kind of the top 2 guys. Now, Lawrence Keys is having a great camp, but Lawrence was out a few days, right? Now, he's back now. Xavier Watts has been out for almost a week now, I believe. Now, since the practice he went out, he has not been back since the practice that I think it was last week.
Yeah, he was he did some individual drill stuff, but he was not involved in any team.
He's still coming back from, I believe, a hamstring injury.
Okay.
Jaden Thomas is out. So there's some guys that are out, but I've been told over the last week it's been Kevin Austin and Braden Lindsey show. And it's not that they're let's just put it this way. The coaches aren't worried about the DBs like they were last year. They were last year. I mean, my source was saying, I don't know, and other than Nick McLeod, I don't really know what's going on,
Sure.
That's not what we're hearing. They're confident in those guys. It's just like, you know what? We can't cover those 2. But you know who else isn't going to cover those 2? Teams 1 through 12 on the schedule. At least that's – now, again, we'll find out if that's true or not, right? Again, we don't know. We've seen 2 full practices.
Right.
But that's just what our sources are telling us. And so keep that in mind because we saw this show before. I mean, it got embarrassing in fall camp in 2018, watching Troy Pride and Julian Love trying to cover Boykin and Claypool. It was like, oh, my God, this is embarrassing.
And that I agree. And it's the same – it feels like the same situation this year. It really does. I don't – when I watch the DBs, when I watch the corners, I don't feel like they're getting their butts handed to them, but they're getting
there's not like bad technique. It's not, man, they look slow. It's just, those guys are good.
Yeah.
And as coaches, and we've done this a long time, we can, again, I'm saying we generally, Vince was obviously there, but and I'm talking about you can tell when a guy's just getting beat and when a guy's getting beat by somebody that's just way better than him.
Right.
And that's the thing. And so this is what Lindsey and Austin, we've always hoped they were going to be. We're not going to talk about too much because I don't want to jinx it and, with their histories, but it's certainly a good sign. Let's another guy that Vince, you can add to this, but Mike Hutton called me after practice too, and he was like, because Mike Hutton's our new beat writer. For those that don't know, we hired Mike. Mike is still getting acclimated to the team, and he asked me, he calls me, he goes, "Who's 84?" So that's Kevin Bauman. He goes, he was really good today.
He was.
Mike is coming in with no agenda. He doesn't know about his injury history. Who's the number 1, 2, or 3? He goes. Other than Mayer. He was really impressive today. He knew who Michael Mayer was. Didn't know who 84 was.
He looked like the number 2 tight end today. And he was rotating in with the ones. Takis was still rotating as the number 2 tight end, but Bauman looked like the number 2 tight end today, at least in the pass game. And he made some spectacular catches in the red zone. Again, great coverage. There was one play, and I can't remember who the DB was, but
I'm going to look it up in the notes here real quick. So
he was in front. He was in front.
You said it was in the red zone, right?
It was in the red zone. Yeah. I've got the same notes.
Okay, it's versus Houston Griffith, and the note says great coverage, even though it was caught for a touchdown.
Yeah. He stretched every inch of every part of his body that he had. Houston Griffith was in front of him, and Bauman went to his left, all the way stretched out, just fingertipped the ball, brought it in for a touchdown. I mean, it was an all-hands, perfectly placed ball, too, by the way. Does it say who the quarterback was? I'm
Drew
sure
Pine.
It does. Yeah, perfectly placed ball by Drew Pine, where only his guy was going to come down with it, and he did. Very, very impressive play, and he made a couple plays in the red zone like that. And again, not Houston Griffith's fault. That the kid was he's just bigger, longer, and was able to go up and get that ball. I mean, it was an athletic catch, very impressive, and it was good to see Kevin Bauman making some plays because he's been a little MIA so far.
Well, and he's been hurt so much in his career. Yeah. I mean, he was banged up as a freshman at times, and he was banged up in the spring. Didn't practice much in the spring. Was a little behind getting acclimated in fall camp.
Sure.
And I was told by someone the other day that said, don't be surprised if Kevin Bauman ends up winning the number 2 tight end job.
Yeah.
So It's going to be an interesting battle these next 13 practices to see who wins that job. But it was nice to hear. I was like, kind of like good for Kevin, right? Like just because he's needed to break, right? Because he's been surveying. So it's nice to have him healthy because again, another highly ranked tight end, coming out. So good to see him there today. Running backs, we didn't get a chance to see much because of the offensive line, but I did see in the notes that Chris had that he kept having number 22, great move, 22, great move. So that's Logan Diggs, by the way.
Yeah, so Logan Diggs is the running back that stood out. Now, let me preface this with the fact that Kyron Williams and Chris Tyree did just fine. Like they were still the number one guys. They look great, okay? But Logan Diggs stood out. I mean, and again, he was going up against the 2s and 3s. He would kind of rotate into both, right? He had one run where he made a couple guys miss in the hole, bounced it outside, made another DB miss, and just barely got caught from behind because he didn't have a chance to get up to full speed yet
after the downfield move,
and just got tripped up at the 20-yard like a shoestringer type situation. But it was electric. Like that got the whole stadium of people fired up.
His feet are I've been saying this since Notre Dame got him.
Man,
he has incredible balance and feet. Incredible balance and feet.
It was nice to be able to see him kind of use his natural athletic ability kind of on the outside. You know what I mean? And it was something.
And you say he's going against the 2s and 3s, but it's like it says something when a guy dominates against that level. It says he doesn't necessarily belong there.
Sure.
He's going to be there all year because of 23 and 25.
Because it's just a stacked room. Yeah. I mean, it just is.
Right.
And look, Audric Estime didn't necessarily stand out, but
different back. He's a different kind of back. Yeah.
And what they were doing, I don't think necessarily is what Audric Estime is going to be.
Because it sounds like it was sort of an inside-outside zone day.
Right.
Is what it sounds like it was. And he can do those things, but it's just a little different kind of thing.
Yeah. So. And he got caught up in the wash a lot. I mean, it's not his fault. I mean, it just we've seen Estime at other practices ball out. I mean, it's just that Logan Diggs balled out today,
and he's balled out every other time you've seen him as well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
They have a very talented backfield. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. But again, it all starts with the first two. It starts with Kyron and his energy and his toughness and his ability and his versatility, and then Tyree's explosiveness. So it's a good deal. Let's kind of talk about the offensive line a little bit, Vince.
Okay.
So obviously Josh Lugg didn't play a ton today. Now, I've heard he's had a very good fall camp, and you've said that from the times you've been there that Josh Lugg has been very good.
Very physical. I watched him in some one-on-one, not one-on-one, but like some double team type drills and things of that nature. Going up against the defense in like half line. That's really what it was. Just punishing people. I mean, he has looked to me very, very good. Gets to the next level very well if need be. I thought his feet have been looking really, really good. I think Josh Lugg. I heard somebody from another site say, Brian Kelly said that Josh Lugg is going to play. They didn't necessarily say he was going to start.
That's what he was. That's exactly what he was intending. He was meaning he's going to play. That's exactly what he meant. He was, of course, he was talking about starting.
Like I just wanted to like, what are you seeing that other people aren't seeing? Because he elaborated that. Well, Josh Baker is probably going to start and all this other and Lugg will just be ready to insert, like what are you talking about?
Let's move on from that nonsense real quick.
But my point is Josh Lugg has been doing very, very well in fall camp. He's absolutely starting.
I did want to ask you this because this is kind of our first chance to see him for first two chances this practice last. Does Jarrett Patterson look like he's healthy? I don't care about how he played. I mean, Jarrett Patterson. Did he look healthy? Is he coming off the line quickly? Is he showing the quickness and burst that we want to see from him?
He looks good to me. I mean, he looks like he's at his old form to me.
Good. Okay.
When I would had a chance to kind of focus in on him, I thought he looked really good.
Honestly. Okay, so doesn't look like the foot injury has had any nothing lingering from that. Okay,
no, not to me.
Now here's an interesting thing that you told me. There were times today when with the first group where you had Zeke Correll at center,
yes,
and Andrew Kristofic at guard,
yes, and they were running with the ones.
Sorry, you just told me who actually said that.
Yeah.
It just makes me funny because that guy's a clown.
Sorry.
The most opinionated O-line person on the planet that knows nothing about the O-line. So I'm sorry. I just thought that was funny. Please continue with. You said basically it looks like contingency. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Please. I got you. So it appeared like that it might be the contingency plan if Jarrett Patterson goes down, moving Zeke Correll back over to center and having Andrew Kristofic at guard, which you and I talked about, like an interesting move because right now Kristofic is getting number 2 center reps. So if your center goes down, apparently it's not going to be Andrew Kristofic at center. Now,
potentially.
Am I extrapolating too much from this? I very well could be.
There's 2 ways to look at it, Vince. One is they're trying to make sure they get a third center ready because as we learned last year, you may need a third snapper.
Good point.
And so it's one of 2 things, which is number 1, well, if one of these guards goes down, if Kristofic's your next best lineman, he needs some work at guard. What happens if Kristofic goes down and Patterson goes down, which we saw last year? You need to make sure Zeke's got some snaps there too. So it could be that way too.
Which would make sense.
It could be that Zeke is the third center. And so, because this is the first I've heard this.
Good point.
Right? So it could just be a situation of, hey, we need to make sure Zeke stays sharp with being able to play center just in case. And if they get into a game and maybe Kristofic is struggling with the calls and snapping and things like that, well, what do? You're not going to put Pat Coogan in the game.
Right.
So I actually kind of like it when you told me that. It was kind of interesting at first, like, that's interesting. But then I started thinking about it, like, oh, well, maybe it's just that
that's a good point.
That they're working on getting Zeke ready to be the third center and, that kind of thing. And so, or you may say, hey, look, Kristofic's our next best guy, but he doesn't have center down to the point yet where you'd want to start him there, but we know he can play.
Right.
So there's all types of contingency plans that it could make sense for that.
And frankly, I'm happy they're doing it now. And they did it in front of us, which I was a little surprised about. But still, I mean, look, I'm a huge Zeke Correll fan at center, so I mean, I know that he can play that position.
Yeah, you were fired up. So the first thing you texted me from press, like, Zeke's taking reps with the offensive center.
It's like, what is happening?
Fired up.
Why is my world spinning? But it was interesting development, right? And so we'll keep an eye on that and see what kind of materializes from that. That's actually one question I would have asked in the press conference, but I was busy coming home preparing for this. And so I don't know if it was addressed in the press conference or not. Probably not.
I didn't see it. No.
People might have missed it, to be honest with you. If you weren't looking for it, you probably missed it. An interesting situation there. We got a couple super chats, Brian.
Yes, we got 2 back-to-back. Curtis Stewart with the $20 super chat. Curtis, thank you so much. That's is amazing, awesome, and very much appreciated. Can't wait to get the season started. This year will be the best with you guys having your feedback and analysis. Thanks for the hard work. Go Irish. Thank you, Curtis.
Thanks, Curtis.
Very, 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 very much. Patrick Barnes also throwing in the super chat. Thanks for the practice update. You are welcome. So these are the things I like. This is obviously the fun part because, we get a chance to see this team play, and having Vince there has been really helpful, very helpful. So we can kind of get an idea of like actually people who know football talking about the team as opposed to the person that said Josh Lugg's not going to start and Tosh Baker's going to start at tackle over Josh Lugg.
Good stuff.
Go ahead.
Good stuff.
Anyway, it sounds like the big struggle today on the offensive line was with Kane Madden. At guard. And it was it was one-on-ones and team. It sounds like is when he was struggling.
So why don't you describe kind of what Chris's notes?
Yeah, so basically talking to Chris. Chris is again, coached offensive line with Vince before, so he's an O-line guy, and it was good to have him there. But he basically said that the big thing is that Kane his technique was basically struggling today. He would, instead of stepping and firing off, he would kind of hop and catch. And it sounds like you talked to him a little bit about just whether that was an issue overall with the offensive line. You can address that, but it just basically was like he was hopping and catching as opposed to firing off and with your proper technique this wasn't necessarily an issue for him at Marshall a ton. I didn't see it anyway, because what happens is when you kind of hop out of your stance like that, you lose your base.
Yep.
Well, when you're 6'2", your base is the most important thing. You have to have your base. And if you're a guy like him who's not super athletic and you are short, you can never lose your base. You have to have that good. And it sounds like that's what he's doing. And when you hop like that, you're going to be naturally on more of the flat part of your feet, which then makes it impossible almost to handle any kind of athletic move. And it sounds like from what you and Chris were saying, the athletic, and this is the concern that we had when they signed him, is if it's power football, he's going to be fine. But if it's playing against athletes, then I'm concerned. And that's what he faces on a day-to-day basis with Notre Dame is athletes. Right. He's not facing a bunch of 320-pounders. He's facing
that's what he saw against Jason Adamiola. That's what he saw against Reilly Mills. That's what he saw against Ahrensburger, right? I mean, the
last video practice you had was Coward Cross was beating him off the ball. So this wasn't even this practice. It was the last practice clips we had. We had one half-line thing, and it was Howard Cross just blowing past him off the ball. Right. That's going to have to get a draft.
And look, we're halfway through fall camp, and we're still having these issues. So it concerns me to a degree. I will say that. I will also say that in defense of Jeff Quinn, when he was doing this in one-on-ones, Jeff Quinn pulled him aside.
Coaching him up.
He was coaching him up.
Right.
So Jeff Quinn sees the problem. Okay.
We'll find out if he can fix it or not.
Exactly.
Some coaches can recognize things and know it's a problem, but not know how to coach it.
Absolutely correct.
Some see it, they coach it up, and it's good to go.
Right.
So it is good and it's good that he was addressing it right then, because what that tells me, when a coach. So what Chris said was, at one point during team, Quinn pulled him out and was getting on him in a coaching manner, which is what you want to do. You don't pull a guy out of practice like that if it's something he's been doing every day.
Good point.
You react that way because, wait, what are you doing? Like, what's going? Get out of here!
What is this?
Right. Yeah. So just the psyche of a coaching staff. If a guy's been showing something, you don't necessarily pull him out, because otherwise you're pulling him out every single practice, and that can be a bad precedent, and it's a confidence crusher. So the fact that they were pulling him out today tells me that he was having a bad day. More because, again, I don't want to fall in the trap of, when we see something that confirms our preconceived thoughts, that we grab on and say, see, we were right. We've been at You've been at 2 practices.
Right, exactly. Right? It's a small window. It's a small window.
So it could just be that he had a bad day. And when Chris told me how Quinn was reacting, that Quinn jumped on him during one-on-ones, Quinn doesn't normally jump on guys during one-on-ones. And when he pulled him out during team and went right to him, it tells me that that's not something that they're used to seeing with Kane. Right. So I do want to temper that a little bit. And look, sometimes it happens. Sometimes guys have bad days.
Sure.
I mean, Quentin Nelson never really had a bad day, but again, that's why Quentin Nelson is Quentin Nelson.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's you don't hold everyone else to that same standard.
Right.
We've seen Ronnie Stanley in the past have bad days. We've seen Alex Bars have bad days. We've seen Liam Eichenberg have bad days. The only 2 guys I don't ever remember seeing have bad days were Robert Hainsey and Quentin Nelson. Just because Hainsey was so steady and Quentin Nelson was just so dominant. I've seen Mike McGlinchey have days where he couldn't block me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just going to happen, right? So I don't want to overreact to this too much. And it's also why I want to tamp down some of the things that we're seeing in the chats of people panicking, is like, this is going to happen in fall camp.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So
I already read it.
So my buddy Jason is trying to tweak me. He's already texted me 15 times during the show. All right. So now that I'm ignoring him, he puts a super chat in, but I'm going to take your money, Jason. So the Stinky 4112 says, this question is for Vince. Vince, if you lined up against a Brian Driscoll quarterback-led offense in high school, how many strip sacks would you have had? I have the over under at 4.5, and that may be low. You better definitely take the under, because I got strip sacked once my entire life in practice and in a game. It was against Wesley College, my redshirt sophomore year. The dude's name was Andre Summers, I believe. He came up and hit me from behind. He was really fast. I didn't see him. It's the only time I've ever been blindsided in my life. So, Jason, you definitely want to strip sack me at Central Catholic in Pittsburgh, wherever you played. Big old slow poke. I would have been shaking you, buddy.
Man!
Just so you all know, Spanky's my guy. That's my friend. So he's gonna get it. So he's trying to bait me into calling him after the show. Vince is what he's trying to do.
Hey,
and it worked.
I was gonna say, it throw us your money. It's gonna work. It's gonna work, man.
Yeah.
You know the way.
Yeah,
but good stuff.
But little brevity to the situation. But I did want to kind of discuss this though, Vince, because I do want to. And I don't know if you're able to be at the top, but I got bumped down to 223. By the way,
I am
on
at
that last super
currently.
chat.
Yeah.
So I just want to pump the brakes on. We have to guard against this. You all have to guard against this. When a guy does something in practice that confirms your preconceived notions, you can't overreact to it more than you would if he wouldn't have, right?
Right.
Like if he would have had a great day, we're like, oh, we were completely wrong about Caden Madden, but I still need to see it on September 5th, right? Same thing happens when he has a bad day. Because I've heard reports that he's been good in practice. He's been steady in practice. So today was different. And today was also different than the last time you saw him because he was not getting beat like this the last time you guys saw in a full team.
Right.
So again, when you have 25 practices, Jack Cohn's going to have a couple days where he throws 4 picks. It's just part of the game.
Yes.
I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit with that. Oh, Jason, I love you. Oh, I love you. Yeah. So yeah, that's good, buddy. I appreciate that. And no, you wouldn't have. I'd have shook you. All right. It's no problem. The rest of your teammates might have eaten me alive, but your slow butt definitely wasn't catching me. I hope people understand Jason has been a friend of mine for over a decade. So the reason I'm busting his chops, he's not I would say a customer per se, so I can be a little meaner to him. But that's my guy.
That's funny.
That's my guy. Stuff. So
hey, thanks, Spanky.
Appreciate both of those, buddy. Very, very much. So Vince, since you're at the top, before we get booted down, I did want to kind of dive into some questions. So you're there. If you want to bring some of those up, let's just get into the questions that people had.
There's one more thing I wanted to add from practice, because we've gotten these questions in the past about punt returns. They did do some special teams today, and they had the punt return, or it was the punt team, but they had the returners out, right? And I know that people are not going to want to hear this, but the number one punt returner was our guy, Salerno.
Mm-hmm.
He was the guy taking first reps, but there were 4 guys total. So I want to make sure I get them all out there.
So what we've done is we've talked about concerns with the O-line, and then you've just got people ready to explode, and then you come up with, oh, by the way, Matt Salerno was the number one.
Oh, by the way, Matt Salerno is still slotted as your number one punt returner.
Heads are exploding across. It's like that scene from The Kingsman. At the end, you ever see The Kingsman?
Yeah.
At the end, like when the chip goes and all their heads explode, that's like happening across Irish Breakdown Nation right now with that comment.
I got to be honest. So, but there were 3 other guys that were catching punts. So this is the order that they went in. Okay. So you had Matt Salerno going first. You had Kyron Williams going second. Let's see. I believe it was Lorenzo Stiles going third. And it was Kevin Austin going fourth.
Interesting.
So I don't know if there was any importance to that order, but the 3 guys behind Matt Salerno are all athletes. Now I'm a little concerned that they've got Kevin Austin back there. I don't know that that's a risk that I'm willing to take, but it's 3 guys that can all make things happen. And again, I will remind people, Matt Salerno's an athlete.
He's
an athlete. Like he could be a decent punt returner if they let him return.
He's
punts.
fair catching all the time because that's what they tell him to do.
Correct. Yes. So I just want to put that out there,
right?
Because people are going to ask. So we have one more.
We did. Tommy Guns. Brian is one of them Virginia ballers only because of his Ohio roots.
Wow.
Okay. When was the last time a Michael Vick came out of Virginia or out of Ohio? That's all I'm saying to you. Okay. Okay. Tommy Guns. You freaking Buckeyes. I tell you what.
Thanks for the super chat, Tommy.
Yeah. Appreciate that, Tommy.
You the man.
Appreciate that very much. Man. Oh, those Ohio people.
Here we go. There are a lot of comments, obviously, but I am going to try to stick to the questions.
Yep.
If possible. Let's see here. I didn't listen. You listen to the press conference, Brian?
A little bit, not a ton. I was more following along with some of the tweets about it because I was trying to get the practice reports ready.
Okay, then I'm not gonna.
And that's why I hired a beat writer.
I know, right?
You know what I mean?
Seriously. Matt Romero says, was it just me or did BK accidentally call a certain O-lineman Blake Griffin?
Well, considering he gets names wrong a lot, I would say it was probably really he did accidentally do it. Yes.
Wow. Okay. Tatted Up Irishman. This show is going to be lit. You're right.
Hopefully it was. Hopefully we lived up to your expectations.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's see here.
It's quite the high bar.
Here we go. This one's for you, Brian. Does a subscription to the message boards give access to all of the IB content? I guess what I'm asking is if the message board is all I need to get my Vinny and Brian fix.
Yes. Yeah. And this is a little bit of a sneak peek. There are going to be some things that we put out on the message board only from a video standpoint that will be nowhere else, because the reality is if we did it in a public forum for everyone to see, it would get dinged and it would get taken down. So there will be some things we do post game that will only be available to Irish Breakdown subscribers on the website. So
nice,
but that's very little. Almost everything else is something you can get even if you're not necessarily a subscriber. There are some insights. There's the daily just conversation that we have. You can ask me questions anytime. As most of you know that follow me on Twitter, I don't really engage a ton on Twitter anymore. I'll answer some questions here and there, but I don't engage as much just because I don't work for Twitter, and Twitter is just like soul sucking. So other than posting my stories on there, I don't get on there a ton. Message board, you can do all that, and there will be some intel. There will be some features this season, especially that will be on the website, that will be on the message board only. The link is in the Vince, it's in the description bar below, correct?
I believe it is. Yeah, I believe
I'll look at it, but so yes, but if you're a subscriber to the message board, there's nothing you won't get, right? Nothing you won't have access to. And so I just want to make sure that people understand that. And that's why I want to make value. And again, it's half the price of what every other website charges. And it's not
twice the content, baby.
And it's not an introductory price. It's not after your first year, it's going to go up. That's our price. So, again, we're going to give a ton of content out to people who aren't members of the message board, but also we're going to make sure that people who are, it says join the Irish Breakdown Premium Message Board is in the description bar below the Built Bar ad and below the Irish Breakdown merch store. And the nice thing is if you sign up for the Irish Breakdown Message Board, if you sign up for a monthly subscription, I give you 10% off your next purchase to the Irish Breakdown store. If you sign up for an annual membership, it gives 20% off. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
We got another super chat. I'll let you grab that one, Brian.
Yep, because I don't want you to lose your place.
Right.
So that's just a super chat from Bronx ND fan, just thanking us for what we do. I appreciate that.
Thanks, man.
Very, very,
that's
very,
awesome.
very much.
That is awesome.
No question.
Let's see here. Notre Dame 2164 says, I couldn't believe the compliment Coach Reese gave Mayer in his talk about the offense. I'm so pumped to see what he can do this year.
I was told by a source, Vince, that nobody can guard Michael Mayer. And my response was, except for Kyle Hamilton. And the response was, nobody can guard Michael Mayer. So, okay, we'll see about that.
All righty.
We shall see. Okay. But no, I expect him to have a big, big year. And look, that's why it's so important that guys like Austin and Lindsey step up.
Yes.
Because it's going to be impossible to defend Michael Mayer with two people, or to squeeze your coverage inside to defend him if you're getting beat on the outside by those guys.
It's and he was making plays all day today. I mean, I didn't bring him up because we know that's what he does.
Yeah.
But he was making plays all day today too.
Yeah.
No question about it. And then Demetrius Rex says, need to hear some good Jack Cohn news. You'll hear it. He played well today. He really did. I really liked his presence in the pocket, because at times that pocket was collapsing on him, and there were one or two occasions where it collapsed on him, and he threw the ball as he was, obviously he wasn't getting hit. He's wearing the red jersey, but as he would have been hit, and making plays. So I was very impressed with his pocket presence today. And there were a couple times where he got outside the pocket and made some plays with his legs too.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the thing that's the thing I'm most curious about, because they keep talking about how athletic he is. And we didn't talk a lot about his athleticism other than pocket maneuverability like you talked about, because we haven't seen it on film yet. That's the thing I'm most curious to see, is how does he handle third downs when when he's got to make a play with his legs. Some of those things that think of that play that Ian Book made in 2018 against USC, where he scrambles 3rd and 10, runs for 10 yards, puts his shoulder down, runs the guy over, picks up the first down. Those are the things that we got to see. We got to see from Jack Cohn that the Notre Dame coaches are saying he's showing, but we've got to now see it in games.
Absolutely. Let's see here. Nick Mayer says, BK looks like he knows something the majority of the media doesn't. We're going to be really good, but please.
We've been saying that for a couple weeks.
We have been saying that.
And from what we actually said this before the season, that there is when I'm talking to people, there's just a different attitude in the program than I've seen in a long time. There really is. I've said this in the past, Vince, there's a difference between thinking you're going to be really good and knowing you're going to be really good. in a lot of the passages, I think we're going to be really good. Now it's just like we're going to crush people.
Right.
Now, whether they will or they won't, I don't know. I mean, but that's just the attitude. And yes, Brian Kelly has had a different demeanor this year. And it's not like a fake, because he's always kind of had the fake jokes. Like he's got to force jokes,
Right. Yeah.
But it's not that, because he's always done that. It's just more of a looseness. He doesn't get as annoyed with questions. And I think a lot of times when he gets annoyed with questions is because, like, I think deep down he kind of knows that this is a problem and he doesn't like being challenged. I feel like part of the reason he doesn't get annoyed is because he's like, okay, we'll see. Yeah.
And I will say he looks a little bit looser at practice too.
I think being more the head coach is helping him.
Yes,
with that,
I agree. And that was going to be my point, was that he's got a little bit less on his plate because he's not the coordinator. Right. And he can kind of be the head coach. He can wander around. He can do a little schmoozing.
He's got a lot of confidence in the two guys leading the show.
He does.
Now, again, right or wrong, that's not the point. I think he'll be right. But yes,
I agree.
Yes.
Yep.
Tommy Guns with the super chat. He says, check out the baby swag. So if you don't see, his little baby is wearing a Gap Closer shirt.
I love that.
Tommy also bought a Gap Closers onesie.
Oh,
we've had a couple people buy those. I had no plans of doing anything like that, but I literally had people at Brandon, who's normally at Brandon Plensner, who's normally in the chat, is the one who came up with that idea. So he's like, you got to get some baby clothes because he has a baby. And I said, okay, all right. We sold onesies. It's kind of crazy, but anyway. So, and then we had, let's get back to the questions, Vince, because I don't want you to get booted before we get to all these.
J Premier BK33, big time ND fan from BK, big fan of IB. Learn a lot listening to your show. Yes, I always hit the like button. Any word on Nana? Haven't heard anything on him.
Again, Jay, thank you again for your earlier super chat.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. And Nana, he's there. He's working with the twos right now. He's not doing anything overly impressive, but he's not doing anything to not be impressive. I mean, he's solidly working with the twos right now, which is a good sign for him because he's been buried in the past with injury and other stuff. So
and this is a big year for Nana, not so much that he forces his way onto the field, but that he gives them confidence that he's going to be ready to go in 2022.
And a reliable piece. Yeah, absolutely.
In 2020. That's when they're going to, when MTA is gone, and that's when they're going to really need him to force him his way on the field. But you also need to feel good about where he's progressing as a coach to say, hey, we need to go get a grad transfer, or we got a force feed to get Tyson Ford ready, or whatever the case may be. So I mean, that's what makes this a big year for him.
Patrick McGrain with a really good question. Is Botelho running with the three so that Adamiola can get more reps and build the depth at Viper with the injuries they have at that position, and just a coincidence with the rumor?
Well, we've seen, according to talking to you and Chris, we have seen very little, if any, of Justin Adamiola playing big end.
Right. He's been at the Viper position.
That's not cross-training.
Right. Yeah, good point. That's a good point.
You can take it. Look, I don't want to – you can take it however you want. But, yeah.
It's a good point. I've only seen him at the Viper position since he's been back from injury. So, take that for however you want to take it. However you want to take it. Chad Williams says, did Cohn lead the offense to a score during live 11-on-11? Word has been he has not led the team to a okay, first of all, who gives a crap, number one. And number two, they don't let them go all the way from down the field from one end to the other, at least when we
and I know for a fact that is not even remotely true. Has not led the team to a TD in full offense versus defense.
Well, and I can tell you that throw to Braden Lindsey was a touchdown.
Was that team?
And it was team. It was 11-on-11.
I know for a fact that's fought.
But they don't.
It's amazing how because he didn't lead him to a touchdown in the blue gold game. Well, if he would have been on the field in the last drive of the game when Tyler Buck was throwing against walk-ons, he would have led them to a touchdown.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me in any way possible.
It's also
just saying
it's not true.
Yeah, I just they don't methodically move the ball down the field.
I'm 100%. I know for a fact that that's false. And as Vince said, he had a team touchdown pass today to Braden Lindsey,
and it was beautiful. All right,
and also full team O versus D usually isn't a drive down the field. You kind of start on one part of the field and you just keep running plays.
Right. Yep. Exactly. And they kind of like would get a first down. And then they would go back to like the 30 or wherever they were. Like that's how they were doing 11-on-11 today. So it wasn't like a live scrimmage. All right. Okay. Chad Williams says Reilly Mills.
Chad, my frustration isn't with you. I've just have heard that rumor before, and it's just frustrating.
It's nonsense. He also says Reilly Mills could be a J.J. Watt 2.0. I see similarities there.
This body type. I mean, again, I am not predicting him to be a top.
Right.
I think what was the style of play wise. I get it. Yeah. But I also think versatility wise, and this is where I think Chad's comment there is on point. Again, we're not comparing him to the guy that was the number 11 or 12 overall pick and has been the defensive MVP. We're just talking about style of play wise. The reason I think that fits is because Reilly does have that versatility to be a 3-4 defensive end. Right. He's not like a 3 technique. If anything, I think the 3-4 defensive end is right now better suited for him. Right, Vince?
Yep.
So, yeah, I think skill set wise, body type wise, and that's why when I was looking over Chris's notes, seeing that Reilly Mills was winning one-on-one reps against tackles kind of had me a little bit fired up.
Right.
Because of exactly what Chad – because Chris Watt was not a 3 technique. Chris Watt was an end.
Right.
And look, this is the thing. Is like if Gabriel Rubio has a big – like we talk about MTA's gone after this year. Well, if Gabriel Rubio has a big offseason, if Jacob Lacey has a big offseason, Jason Adamiola is probably going to be in the NFL next year. But could you see a scenario where they say, hey, you know what? We feel good enough about Rubio and the guys coming in that maybe we might want to play Mills more than – I could see something like that. Now, again, I'm not predicting it. It would be dependent on other guys playing. If and Lacey and those guys dominate and have great springs, sure.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is he brings that kind of versatility. Much like MTA is in some instances better suited for end in this defense and 3 technique. I think you could make a case that Reilly Mills might be that guy. Because Reilly Mills will never be 300 pounds. At least and still be
listed at 6'5", 273 right now.
And he can get to 300 pounds, but he won't still be athletic if he gets 300 pounds.
Tommy Guns has an interesting question you can probably talk about. Are any of the new IB writers here in the chat?
No, they're working on writing right now.
Of course.
Well, one of them, so Mike Hutton right now is working on his practice reports, and he did the Brian Kelly interview. So he's handling a lot of the beat stuff so that we can be here doing this, and there's still work getting done. Grant Del Vecchio is a Notre Dame student. And that is the other writer that we hired. And I'm hoping we get one more writer that's also a Notre Dame student, but we'll see about that. But Grant is still getting moved in. And, first week of class is going to start up here, I think, next week?
Probably Tuesday, yeah.
Right? So he's getting all settled in for that. So he has not officially started working yet, but Grant has been on the message board. And, he's working.
I'm guessing those 2 guys will both be on the message board at some point. So
Yep. And I'm very excited about Grant and very excited about Mike. So it's going to be good. But yeah, you do not expect to see them in on these things very often. This is going to be Vince and I primarily.
Yep. This is our niche. Or my niche anyway.
But that's also partly why I wanted to hire them so we could focus on doing these things.
Yes, exactly. Here we go. Chris Hewitt says, I've been on vacation in Yellowstone. That sounds unbelievable. Nice to be back talking ND football with the best IB nation. Brian, Vince, you guys are the best. Thanks for your hard work. Go Irish. Thanks, Curtis. Good to have you back in the fold.
Curtis, also, thank you for that super chat you left earlier. And I was always wanted to go to Yellowstone, but I watched 2012 the other day, and I'm like, I'm good. And I get into when I'm working, I like to have stuff in the background, and I get into the National Geographic and the History Channel stuff, and they were doing the super volcano. And I'm like, you know what? I'm good.
Yeah.
But I've heard it's absolutely awesome up there. My wife's been up there. She said it's beautiful up there, really cool. So I hope you had fun.
We were talking about sitting in the expensive seats. He says those seats are overrated. I've sat there twice. Probably the worst game experience I've had.
I would never want to sit in those
seats. It's not good because you can't see anything.
No, you can't see the
right
players
in front of you.
Yeah, you can't see the players.
Yeah, it's not. They're not good seats. Now, when it's an empty stadium, they're great seats. Right, and they're padded and they're nice, but they're really hot today. I knew it. I just got bumped, and so now my top, Brian, is 259. Whoops.
Okay. We already saw that one.
Yeah, I accidentally clicked that.
Let's see where Chad was. He goes, now the suites, those are nice, other than having to talk to pretentious rich people to view and experience the arena.
I can imagine.
My wife sat in those sections, and my dad has sat in that section, and my dad had a blast. He said the people were nice, the people were friendly. So I don't know if you had to talk to rich, pretentious people or not, but my parents enjoyed that. And I have a good friend of mine that has season tickets. My wife and I actually looked into doing that, buying those.
Really?
Yeah, and we were really thinking about getting, because I wanted to get them for my dad, start a price for my dad, and then games he can't come, I can sell them or whatever for face value, get the money back. But I was like, oh yeah, I can swing that, and then but there's a $30,000.
I don't know what it is, but you got to donate and you got to do all this other stuff.
It's a one-time thing. I was like, yeah,
it's not just the tickets.
Yeah. So like a middle class guy, I can actually afford those tickets. Oh, no. We're going to make sure that your kind's not in here.
Right.
Because we're going to put a 5-figure tax on it, donation tax or whatever on it. So I'm like, oh, okay. So that's how you get rid of the riffraff like me. is to make sure that you make it so expensive that only really wealthy people can afford it.
Like, yeah, exactly. The riffraff.
The riffraff like me and my family.
Great. That's great. The problem is my family's going to be picking up after your family. That's how we roll.
Stop that. It's just because you have so much manual labor that you've bred into your family.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm not going to have Sadie and Rita there. You know what I mean? So, all right. Here goes. Cesar. Have to work right now. Just dropped by to leave my like. Thank you, Cesar. We'll be listening to the program later today. Greetings from Southern Cal to everyone here.
Nice.
Greetings to you. Thank you for that.
Nice. And you're actually where I'm at now.
Okay, Matthew Southgate said, I take it to be good, as said before by Brian, years past, defense should dominate your offense in the beginning. Once offense has more time to implement more plays personnel, we will see a switch. And that's kind of what we started to see in the last week.
Yeah.
We've had days where the offense has done really well. I would be nervous if practice 12 if the offense was getting dominated, and that had been the story every time we talk to a source. Practice 12 is when you should start having some days. And also, I don't think it's a surprise that the defense did some things today to give problems to the offense when we've heard that the offense has been putting in work on the defense, because after a while, you're kind of like, okay, let's go throw something at them, Right. So, yeah, I'm not too worried about that.
Brian, I know you want to tackle this one from Ty B. He says, why hasn't BK found an elite quarterback, or at least got any quarterbacks to perform at a high level at Notre Dame? At CMU and Cincy, he had 2 quarterbacks play lights out. I figured he wouldn't have trouble at Notre Dame finding a championship quarterback.
Well, I would somewhat disagree with the premise to a certain degree and accept it in others. He's never had an elite quarterback, right? But not many people have. When you use the term elite, I mean, it's a very rare commodity. We've seen a couple at Clemson. We've seen a couple at Oklahoma. I don't know if we've seen a lot of other elite college quarterbacks for teams that are winning. I think the other part of that thing I would say is, well, it's a little easier to be elite when you're playing against, the Big East back in 08 and 09, and against the MAC. So that's part of it too. There's a whole different spotlight on a guy at Notre Dame than there is at Cincinnati or Central Michigan.
True.
The other part of it too is I would say that they have had guys play at a championship level. The problem is, however, is as they've spent more time in their careers, the play decreases. I think Ian Book in the regular season in 2018 played at an extremely high level. It's just he got into the big game and couldn't play that way against Clemson.
Right.
We saw Deshaun Kaiser play at a pretty darn good level in 2015, but then he regressed in 2016 and did not perform well. Everett Golson in 2012 was a winning quarterback. You could get him there. I think part of the problem has been, number one, they haven't really had a quarterback other than now with Tommy Rees. They've never had any continuity with the quarterback coach, and not a ton at coordinator. You think Charlie Molnar was there first 2 years, then Chuck Martin takes over for 2 years, then he goes and gets a job at Miami of Ohio, which you understand. Then Mike Denbrock comes in for 2 years. I thought he did a good job his first year. Then you get Mike Sanford coming in, who I thought was a terrible quarterbacks coach, still think is a terrible quarterbacks coach. You saw a regression from Deshaun Kaiser after another year under Mike Sanford. You saw Jordan Love regress from what he was at Utah State in 2018 to then what he was at Utah State in 2019 when Mike Sanford arrived. We saw Tanner Morgan at Minnesota this year regress big time in his first year working with Mike Sanford. So I think there's been some bad quarterback hires. I think Charlie Molnar was a bad coach. I think Mike Sanford was a bad coach. And really, this is the first consistency continuity that we've seen at the quarterback coach position. Well, they've only had one quarterback really to work with for most of Tommy Rees's tenure. And if you look at quarterback recruiting, I mean, he did just sign a pretty freaking good quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Tyler Buckner. We just haven't had a chance to see Tyler develop yet.
Sure.
And of course, I think they did a bad job with Phil Dracovic. I think he was an elite recruit.
Right. I agree.
They just didn't develop him, and I don't think he fit what they're looking for in a quarterback, in my opinion. So I understand where you're coming from, but I just feel the problem has not necessarily been finding a very good quarterback. It's been developing a very good quarterback. I still, to this day, there's a couple things I believe to be true about the 2015 season. Number one, if they'd have had a real defensive coach and a better strength program, I think Notre Dame could have competed for a title that year. I really do. Number two, if Malik Zaire doesn't get hurt, I think they would have beat Clemson. And I think they would have beat Stanford. And I think they would have been undefeated. Now, would they have won a championship? No, because of Brian Van Gorder and Paul Longo. But I think Malik Zaire was poised to have a monster season that year. And the Virginia game that everybody points to as like he didn't play well that game is further evidence of why he was so good. Because his pass game, he was 7 for 18 when he got hurt. But he had a bomb to Will Fuller for a touchdown because Malik had a bazooka for an arm.
Yep.
And he also he was on pace for over 100 yards rushing before he got hurt. Because he was at what? I'm going to have to look it up now. But he was, I think, in the 80s rushing yards because he had just ripped off a long run on the drive he got hurt. Because he got hurt running up the middle and somebody landed on him and it busted up his ankle. But he had just ripped off a long run to set up that score. And when he came out of that in that game, when Malik came out, they scored. They put Deshaun Kaiser in on the next play, and Malik and Deshaun handed off to CJ Prosise. He ran for a touchdown. It made it 26-12. They were on the verge of blowing Virginia out before Malik got hurt. But that game, Malik had 87 rushing yards. He got hurt in the third quarter. He would have gone over 100 yards rushing in that game. So, yeah, his passing game, that game was struggling, but he had just destroyed Texas the week before throwing the football. He beat LSU in a bowl game the year before. I think Malik would have had a great year that year if he doesn't get hurt. So there's also been some bad luck. What would Everett Golson have been at Notre Dame had he not gotten himself suspended? I don't blame the coaching staff for Everett getting suspended. Everett made a bad choice. You know what I mean? So I think there's been some of that too. I don't blame the staff for Deshaun Kaiser's regression other than – I don't blame Kelly per se other than specifically hiring Mike Sanford. That was a mistake. But, Deshaun also was his own worst enemy in a lot of ways. So it's not all Brian Kelly, and that's why Tyler Buchner is such a huge thing for Notre Dame because you need somebody to break that cycle.
Right.
And it's not Tyler Buchner, then who? And now it gets even harder to recruit that guy because it's like, well, why would I want to come there? You've had all these highly ranked players, Jakovic, Gunnar Kiel, Everett Golson, Malik Zaire, Tyler Buchner, Drew Pine, Deshaun Kaiser. You have all these really talented quarterbacks, and none of them panned out. It's a you problem, and I don't want to go there. But if Tyler Buchner pans out, then I think a lot of that's gone. If Jack Cohn, and that's partly Jack Cohn too. If Jack Cohn can have the year I think he's going to have, that's going to help with Dante Moore, in my opinion. It just will. And then if Tyler Buchner really pans out, then it helps with recruiting quarterback moving forward, in my opinion. So long answer, but I appreciate the question.
All right. Michael Johnson says if the defense is working the O-line, that's a good thing because it prepares the O-line for things to come.
Yeah, we also had a super chat.
Oh, yeah. Hit it.
From Aaron Schmidt. Thank you, Aaron, very, very much for the super chat. I appreciate that.
Thanks,
very,
Aaron.
very much.
Thanks, Aaron. AJ says, BK was asked about Styles, and he said, quote, he is such a detailed guy that it sometimes gets in the way of him playing free, unquote. Hasn't that been the problem because of the coaches asking young wide receivers to know everything? Maybe he feels he has to be extra detailed because he's trying to earn Alexander's trust.
I think in theory you're correct, AJ. I do think that is a problem. I would say that, but we can't every single time blame it on the coaches because there are some players that are just that way. There are some players that just think that, especially freshmen, that they just overthink everything, that they just kind of get in their own way.
Right.
So could it be that you could be 100% right? I don't know the answer to that. I'm not there, and I haven't heard from them. But I also know that Lorenzo's a really intelligent kid, really smart. And sometimes those really smart kids can be that way.
You can overthink it.
And you just got to say, hey, man, look, just chill. Just run the post, right? But what about just run the post? Just go, right? Just be better than that guy. So I don't want to necessarily say that it's a Dell problem because I don't know the answer to that. He hasn't been here long enough. I haven't seen enough practice or any practices. You haven't seen enough practices to say that. So I don't want to just get in the habit of just banging on Dell every time we hear that or a coach every time we hear that because the issues that Clark Lee had with Shane Simon, those weren't a problem with Drew White. They weren't a problem with Jack Lamb. They weren't a problem with Jack Kaiser. They weren't a problem with Osmo.
And they continue to be a problem with a new linebacker coach.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Yeah.
Some guy, and Shane's another guy. Shane's a really intellectual kid.
Sure.
And I think sometimes those guys just don't know how to just shut it off and just go.
Yep. Okay. Chris Hewitt says the D-line will help this O-line along. I just hope I don't get in the heads of the O-line and they lose. I hope it doesn't get into the heads of the O-line and they lose confidence.
That's a legitimate concern.
It is.
But I do think from what I've been told by sources, the offensive line has had enough pretty good days in camp.
Good.
That I don't think that's going to be a problem. And I really don't. Because, again, what we saw today is not what I heard about, for example, this past weekend. And that's what we have to understand is it's not always just about that. We got a question down here.
Yeah.
It's a super chat from Henry Johnson.
What's up, Henry?
Thank you very, very much for the super chat.
Thanks,
What's your
man.
opinion on JoJo Johnson as a DB? Do you think he'll play special teams at all? Vince, I'll let you answer this one, but I want to give you mine first.
Yeah.
So the first time I saw JoJo was 2019. He was at Notre Dame's Irish Invasion Camp, and I loved the kid. Like, to the point where I actually called some of my friends at the D1 levels, hey, you guys got to recruit this kid. And they didn't, and they screwed up because I think they could have got him. Power 5 schools. They could have got him, and it would have been harder to flip him from Cincinnati than it would have been from those schools. But they didn't listen to me, and he eventually got on, and he, became he's a guy that Notre Dame went after. So
right.
I like JoJo. I think here's my thing, Henry. Most skill players I do not view as 5-year players, and I say play them. For me, JoJo's a little different because I think JoJo still, even though he played DB as a junior and senior in high school, I still think he's still very raw as a DB. And I think he's a guy that I could say, maybe we might want to preserve a year for him. Let him get – and what I would do with JoJo is a lot like what they did with Maris Luafau in 2019. Remember, Maris started on special teams in 4 games.
And they were all the big ones.
And it was like Georgia – right.
Yeah.
It was Georgia. It was like they started him on special teams against Georgia, but then they didn't play him against BG and New Mexico. They ended up saving a year of eligibility. I could see something like that with JoJo this year. But because you have so many other corners on the board – I could see an advantage to maybe letting him sit a year to learn. And then now next year he's kind of a freshman all over again. And now he's caught up technique-wise. Now that would help JoJo kind of get on the same page of the other DBs who've been kind of playing DB for 4 or 5 years.
Right.
And now it becomes about who's the better player. And with JoJo, I see a guy with great feet, a guy with speed, a kid. I mean, have you seen pictures of him from this summer, Vince?
He
does not look like the kid I saw at the. Like when I saw him, he was like 5'10",
sure,
5'9.5", like $165, $170 at Notre Dame's camp. Now he checked in at a legit 5'11" and 190 pounds. I saw a picture of him, and he looks jacked. That's awesome. That tells me that JoJo physically is going to have the talent to play at Notre Dame, but I just want to see him get a year where he doesn't have the pressure of having to go out and play and just, here's your stance, here's your technique, here's how you use your hands, here's how you play, do all those kind of things and just learn without burning a year. And I think that could be better for him because he's one of the few guys that I view as potentially someone you'd want to bring back for a 5th year. And the other thing too is he can play corner, he can play slot. He could even be a Sean Crawford type of safety because JoJo's a tough kid. He's a kid that's eventually he's going to be able to bring the wood. So he's one of the few skill kids that I would ever say I actually think a red shirt might be good for him. I really do. I don't know if you agree or disagree.
Well,
with that.
I will say I know he's a project on the defensive side, but I've also seen some athletic.
Didn't he have a pick today
from him
during one-on-ones?
Because
you had him down number 20. Had a pick today.
Yeah. I've been impressed with him, and I will differ with Brian in that if he earns a spot on special teams, you give it to him, and I think you play him.
Normally, I agree with that. So. Yeah. Normally, Vince, I agree with that.
I understand everything you said. I totally get it.
That's why I say this is one of the few exceptions. Because normally I'm right with you. It's like, look, let the kid, if the kid's good enough to start on special teams, he's a starter.
Right, exactly.
I just feel like with JoJo, because I do think of the potential he has as a corner.
Sure, I get that.
I just would really – because, could that be the year, that 4th to 5th year be the year his game really takes off?
Sure.
That kind of thing. Plus, I still think if here's the other thing too is I think there's a couple corners in this year and last year's classes that I think are better suited for safety. You give JoJo another year to kind of develop, and then he kind of steps up, and now you still have 4 years with him.
Sure.
You might be more willing to say, hey, look, let's move this kid to safety. And whether it's Clarence Lewis, whether it's Philip Reilly, whether it's Devin Moore, whether it's Jaden Bellamy, whoever, right? But I also am sympathetic to your point, Vince, if a guy earns a starting spot on special teams, you have to play him.
Right.
And 99 times out of 100, I'd agree with you. I just think JoJo, because of the position switch that he went through late in his career, is my exception to the rule.
I get that.
Brian Poley would strongly disagree with my sentiment.
He's too busy working with the punts.
But if the guy can be a starter for him, why would he want to redshirt a guy? So
right, exactly. Jonathan says, what's the highest you could reasonably see Houston Griffith going in the draft? And if both he and Kyle get taken highly in the draft, how low do you think our preseason ranking will be next season? Excuse me.
I think Houston. I don't see Houston. I'm more convinced that Houston's going to come back for a fifth year for no intel whatsoever, but just knowing that he'd get to kind of be the guy at safety for a year.
Right. He won't be overshadowed by Kyle Hamilton. I can see
have 2 years as a starter. Honestly, with Houston, it's all about the combine. I mean, it's hard for me to say. We haven't ever really seen him play a lot of safety. To me, he has late day 2, early to mid day 3 at talent. I mean, at best right now. But again, that's coming from just haven't seen him play a ton. Mm-hmm. I'd really want to see him play first. But look, if he goes out there and is a really good football player at Notre Dame and looks like a day 2 pick, Jalen Elliott's a perfect example. Jalen Elliott's a really good football player at Notre Dame. Alohi Gilman's a really good football player at Notre Dame. But they didn't have the kind of testing numbers that you'd see.
Yeah.
That you'd want to have as a higher pick. I mean, Alohi, as good as he was in Notre Dame, was a 6th-round draft pick. Jalen Elliott was a 3-year starter in Notre Dame. He was undrafted. Now they're both on NFL rosters right now. So that's what I say is if Jalen Elliott doesn't run a 4.8 at the combine and instead runs a 4.5, he doesn't go undrafted.
Yeah,
there's no way. And so that's why I say with Houston, he's going to put good. If he stays for 2 years, he's going to put really good film out, in my opinion. Then it just becomes okay. Let's just see how athletic he really is. And that's going to ultimately tell the tale.
Joe Meduna says, how are the freshman receivers faring? Are any pushing the older players for playing time? Any word on Xavier Watts? Worried that he will leave if he doesn't get some PT.
Go ahead.
Xavier
Watts, real quick, Vince. I'll let you. As we mentioned earlier, Joe, he has been out, so that's why we haven't heard a lot about him. He's been out with a hamstring injury. Hopefully, he'll be coming back soon. Xavier's also a different kind of kid. I'm not as worried about him transferring as I would other players. I think Xavier really likes it in Notre Dame, and he's a competitive kid that doesn't just see it's not going my way, so I'm going to leave.
Right.
Maybe he does, but I just don't think that's his mindset right now. The freshman Vince Jaden Thomas has also been out with a hamstring. He got hurt the first week, and he's been out ever since. You could better address how the other two are doing.
Deion Colsey and Lorenzo Styles have been getting reps. They've kind of fluctuated with the 2s and the 3s, kind of back and forth between the two of them. They're both making plays in practice. I think that, if Notre Dame goes 5 or 6 deep, I think they're probably on the outside looking in a little bit. Maybe they could sneak in there at the bottom. Just depends on how deep Notre Dame really wants to go, with their rotation. But that's kind of where they are right now. I don't know that Notre Dame would be upset if they were in the rotation.
I still think you have to get them in the field.
I do too.
You have to get them 5 to 10 snaps. And look, there may be a game or two. Maybe you don't play them against Wisconsin and Cincinnati, but you have to play them against Toledo and Purdue.
Sure. I'm interested to see what the rotation looks like.
I did see in your notes today that you had Deion going 3 for 3 in his one-on-ones, including beating Cam Hart on a slant route.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And again, slant, and I will say this, I don't want people to freak out about Cam Hart. Slant routes
coverage, most likely.
It was off coverage. Yeah. It's a gimme route. I mean, there's nothing the DB can do about that. So.
And you have him down for beating Chance Tucker on a comeback, and then also you had him down for beating who's that number? He actually beat looks like Chance Tucker on a corner route, but the ball was overthrown. And then you have him beating Ramon Henderson on a corner route. So 3 for 4 in the red zone. So
not bad.
But they need to play. They're too good not to get some playing time this year. They're just they can't repeat last year and say, well, these guys are really good. Yes, those guys are really good. And this isn't a year where I'm not going to be complaining as much that how do you not have that guy on the field for 30 snaps a game? No, you got to get him you got to get him work. You got to get him work. They're too talented not to play. And they're not 5-year players. So what's the point of redshirting them?
Sure. Yeah, good point. Joe says, whom do you see as the backup quarterback? Tommy Rees needs to get kids in there to get them reps. They're getting plenty of reps. You don't have to worry about that. They're getting plenty of reps. Drew Pine is the number 2 guy right now. And
Tyler Buckner's pushing him from what I've been told, though.
Yeah, but now they're all getting reps. Yeah. All 3 of those guys are getting plenty of reps. That lack of reps is not a problem right now.
And I think part of the backup job, Vince, is going to be determined by what do they need from the quarterback.
Sure.
If the offense is rolling to the point where they just need someone to come in there and distribute the ball, it's going to be Drew Pine. But if they feel like the offense needs more of a playmaker, then it'll be Tyler Buckner. If something happens to Jack Cohn.
Sure.
So that's part of it too, is that, we have to factor in. It's not always just about, who's the next guy? It's also like, what's the need of the offense? If Jack's just doing the ball distributing thing and you need someone to come in and do that, it's going to be Drew. But I'm hoping that it's Drew Tyler gets a role in the offense, and then if something happens to Jack Cohn, you just put Tyler in there and you just maybe expand Tyler's role a little bit, and you keep playing the 2 guys.
Kenny Moore says, will FSU be a full stadium? And if so, has the team started preparing for crowd noise, or will they wait until game week? They're going to wait. That's not something.
It will be a full stadium.
Yes.
Florida is completely open, has been for a while. I would imagine, Vince, they'll probably start in normally you give yourself 2 weeks to prep for the opening game in camp. So you're still probably middle of next week probably is when you'll start seeing them do that. And they're going to do exactly what they did the last time, because they actually were prepared for that noise pretty well in 2014. Noise was not an issue for Notre Dame in 2014. They were prepared for that. They had a great game plan. Florida State just had better players that day.
Sure.
And Jimbo outcoached Brian Van Gordon in the second half. And they had help from a few other guys wearing a black and white at the end of that game as well. So,
Jonathan says Vince has got to be happy right now. He's the number 1 Cam Hart fan, no doubt. And Kenny says we're all going to be the Cam Hart fans very quickly. He's going to be really good. Could not agree more.
Agree.
Yep. Let's see. I'm going to look for some questions here.
Vince, where are you at, by the way?
320.
Okay, you're still way ahead of me.
And scrolling.
B. Straw just says, I just signed up for the message board. Can't wait for the season to start. Welcome aboard. You're not going to regret it. It's going to be a lot of fun. No question about it.
I'm going to put this one up here, but I don't want people to think we're going to be bashing somebody else. Orange Glove guy says, is Pete Sampson watching the same ND team that you are? Didn't sound that way on 365 sports interview, whatever that is. Doubts at wide receiver, defensive ends, etc. Some people are more negative than others. He's been on the beat for a really long time. Maybe he's tempering the expectations, but I can only say what I see, and I have no worries about defensive end and wide receiver. So Pete sat 3 seats down from me today. And, we didn't necessarily have a conversation. We talked a little bit here and there, but he and I disagree on a lot of things when it comes to how Notre Dame plays and things of that nature. So I'm not going to tell you they look good if they don't look good. Let's just put it that way.
It would be silly for us to do so.
Right. I'm not going to do that.
It's a lot easier to be. This isn't about Pete, because I have no comments to make about Pete Sampson. This is just a general comment. It's a lot easier to be skeptical of new players, and then when they play better, you say, well, because people can buy. Well, look, they're inexperienced. I didn't see it. That kind of thing. Sure. It's easier to do that. It would be silly for us to overhype something that we didn't actually believe to be true, because then we would constantly be wrong, right. and eventually people stop listening. So yes. Beyond that, I have no comments to make.
I just wanted to say that, yes, we're watching the same thing, but everybody's opinion, you know what I mean? And so everybody's entitled to their opinion. That's fine. But yeah, I
Next question.
Yep. Let's see.
I also don't want to comment too, because I didn't hear what he said. Because
absolutely,
it may be somebody else's perception that he was being negative, but I don't want to comment on something I didn't listen to or hear.
Here, so it goes. 76 says a lot of national coverage is questioning the D line. They're in for a rude awakening in a couple of weeks. I agree with that, because if you are underestimating what the D line is going to do,
because didn't we hear the same thing last year? The last 2 years. Well, how are they going to replace Tillery? Gee, I just don't know if they're going to replace Tillery. And then in 2019, you know, Aguara gets hurt. Well, they're screwed now because Dalen Hayes is out and Julian Aguara was out. So what happened then? Jameer Jones balls out the final 5 games of the year. You know, exactly. How are they going to replace Aguara and Khalid Kareem? Dalen Hayes and Adi Ogundishi said, "We got this. Don't worry about it." That's what good teams do. I mean, that's what good teams do. So yeah, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right.
Mike Gardner has a comment. If Freeman turns Houston from transfer, who is down and out, to secondary leader next to Hamilton, that will be more impressive than any recruiting battle that he has won so far.
It will certainly be the most pertinent because it's going to impact this team.
Right. No question. I will say Chris O'Leary is doing a great job with the safeties.
You texted me that during practice. You said, and I think I have your thing here. You said, I believe I have verbatim. I'm going to pull this up, Vince. I know normally I don't share text messages with people.
It's all good.
You said, I love listening to O'Leary, coach. That was a text message I got from you right in the middle of practice.
Yeah, because they were stationed literally right in front of where I was sitting. I could hear everything he was saying, word for word, how he was coaching the guys, his relationship with his position group. He is constantly talking, constantly coaching. I mean, I think he's doing a great job. I think he's doing a great job with these guys. You know, obviously the proof's in the pudding. Obviously it helps to have Kyle Hamilton, but he's working with the least amount of depth, I think, of anybody on the team. And I'm very interested to see what happens with that depth. And if they're good, if that depth is good, it's because of Chris O'Leary. I mean, he's coached them up. He's got them ready to play.
Right.
And I'm really excited to see where it goes, because I was locked into what he was doing.
Mike's right. That would be an impressive recruiting battle. But to your point, Vince, it would also be a good sign for the future of the coaching at safety, which is not Marcus Freeman's responsibility. It's Chris O'Leary.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree with that. If you see something, go ahead and throw it up. I'm scrolling.
So, because we need to work through, because Vince, you only have about 10 minutes left. So I do want to get.
Got to go watch my kid play some football.
OC Irish fan says, Brian, without giving away any of your, when you reference sources, what does that mean? Do you approach them? Thanks for the insight. Both. I'm not going to tell you who that. Like, I'm not going to tell you not names, but like I try to talk to different types of sources. Some of them are really close to the program. Some are observers of the program that maybe get to be at a practice here and there. Some are people closely related to people in the pro. I mean, I try to talk to as many sources as possible. So like when I put an intel feature out on the website, it did not come from one person. It doesn't come from 2 people. It comes usually from at least 3 or 4 people, just because I like to kind of balance. Just because one person tells me something, like there's probably 7-8 bits of intel that I got that I didn't put in the last intel feature because I only heard from one person.
Right.
And I couldn't get it confirmed with anybody else. So it's from all types of different people. Not getting into like, well, it's a coach. Well, okay, well now that can get narrowed down. Or it's from the dad of a left tackle on the, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to say who. It's clearly not who it is, which is why I use that example.
Yes, which is awesome, by the way.
Yeah. So, but it's rarely. And if I throw something in passing, it may be, hey, I had a source tell me this. Saying in passing, take it for what it's worth.
Right.
But when I put an intel piece out, it's because I've talked to as many sources as possible, which is why you don't just do one every single day.
Yep.
It takes time to kind of put that good intel together. Anyone can just throw out some rumblings they heard about this person or that person. But if you want it to be good and trustworthy
today, like, because you just hear people.
Those are the funniest thing when you sit at practice and you just hear, well, I heard this. And I'm like, well, that's not what's going on the field right now. So
you also hear how unintelligent from a football standpoint some people are.
Don't go there. Don't go there. Do you ever wonder why I sit about 30 rows behind everyone else when I'm at practices? 2 reasons. 1, better view. And number 2 is I just want, even from people I respect, you'd always come to me. I'd always kind of be off on my own.
Yep.
I only allowed you into my sphere. You and Lou Emoji are the only people allowed into my sphere. Because I just want to focus, and I don't want other stuff, right or wrong.
Absolutely.
I don't want other stuff in my head. I just want to be able to lock in on practice. People say,
I hear you, man.
How do you get so much info out of practice? Number 1, I'm a former coach, so it's easier. But number 2, I don't sit there talking to people the whole time.
Yes, because it's a social event. It's a social event for people, for some people. So anyway. So it goes. 76 says, I might be reading too much into it, but BK had an audible sigh before he said Madden when listing off the offensive line starters.
He does that all the time. I wouldn't read too much into that. I didn't hear it either, but I wouldn't read too much into that. Because for the people I've talked to, Madden's been having a solid camp. That's why I wanted to preface the whole – because we could have easily come into the conversation today and said, like, see, we were right about Kane and Madden. He's not this, he's not that. All these other kind of things, and we told you that'd be childish and incorrect because it would also be hiding the fact that I've had sources I trust tell me he's had a pretty good camp. I just think he had a rough day. Now, as we get deeper into camp, we'll find out if he's having more and more problems now. The defense is throwing more and more at the offense. That could also be it too, but I wouldn't read too much into that comment.
Jonathan says, do you think Brian Kelly is evaluating coaches in a vacuum, or do you think that BK is taking advantage of Freeman's momentum and pushing the offensive side to strive for similar things?
I'm not really sure about. I guess that kind of went over my head a little bit.
From a recruiting standpoint, maybe, or that's what I'm guessing, because Freeman hasn't done anything on the field yet. So
2 weeks of fall camp, but that's about it. Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying.
I'm not. Jonathan, I'm not. I think you're on the message board, so maybe you could follow up later and elaborate on that, just because I want to make sure that I answer it the right way.
Tommy Gunn says, since scholarships don't matter this year, will our favorite waiver to the football get one this year? Who's he referring to? Salerno?
Maybe. I have no idea. No idea what that means.
Okay, fair enough.
David Pollard says, I think one of the keys to our season is how both lines do. If we protect Cone, we can pressure other quarterbacks. We will be dangerous. I believe that to be absolutely true. No, I agree with you completely.
John Erickson says, from a very long time watching college football, nothing changes momentum, sometimes for good, like a fumbled kick. Mm-hmm. I, for one, am content with fair catches and kneel downs.
I am not. I think there's a time and a place, because you know what else changes momentum in a football game is when you can score on special teams. Think about the 2015 Stanford game. Stanford takes the opening drive, and Kevin Hogan right down the field. They score on Notre Dame. What does Notre Dame do? C.J. Sanders responds by taking a kick back to the house. Right? Think about how Rockets' kick return against Miami in 1990 broke that game open.
Right.
So, I mean, yes, you're correct. It does change momentum, but all big plays on special teams do. I could make just as strong of an argument that big returns have the same impact, or blocked kicks have same impact. So I'm okay with fair catches more than most people, more than some are. But I also think you're always looking to steal yards, Vince. Always looking to steal yards. And if you can gain 7-8 yards on a return from where you would have been because you were too conservative with your fair catches, then then you lost an opportunity. You could have got a first down on that return, an extra first down on that return. So, yes, there's a time and a place to fair catch. And if you got guys coming around, you don't be silly. Don't be too aggressive. But I'd like to see them be more aggressive than they are. But they're not going to look like when the Rocket or Ricky Waters is here, because, number one, they don't have Rocket or Ricky Waters on the roster. Number two, the rules are different now. And number three, teams have now adjusted. They don't do the spread punt like they used to back in the day. It's a different deal.
Okay. Oh, Bronx ND fan. IB swag delivery confirmation received today. Can't wear to wear my gear in NYC. That's awesome. Got a little IB in New York. Loving every bit of that. And Larry says his hoodie arrived here yesterday. Nice. Love that. That's fantastic. Kevin Thomas says, pretty big that we could have 2 top 10 picks in the next 2 drafts, Hamilton and Mayer.
Certainly potential. I mean, again, those are not necessarily prime positions unless you're really special. But the good thing for Notre Dame is both of those guys are pretty special.
Yeah, they really are. I don't know if a tight end will go in the top 10, but I think
Kyle Pitts just did. But again, you got him. T.J. Hawkinson did. I think T.J. Hawkinson would be a better comparison for Mayer than Kyle Pitts because they're such different players.
Sure.
But if Kyle Mayer does the next 2 years, or Kyle Mayer, combining them into one, Michael Mayer does the next 2 years what I think that he can do, then sure, yeah.
Curtis Hewitt, when in the season, in your opinion, will we know what kind of team Notre Dame will be this year?
Oh, well, it's in stages, Curtis. Yeah. It's, you find a little bit about them in game 1. Then I think the next test is Wisconsin. Then I think the next test is that first big road game against Virginia Tech. I mean, so there's like little tests along the season that define who you are, but you really never know who a team really is until November. I think that's what really separates the men from the boys, so to speak, is what you do in November. But there's always little tests and evaluations, that help you. And by the way, I just got bumped down about 30 questions because people kept responding to this troll that was in the chat, and so now I'm way down, so I can't. I got bumped down about 4 minutes.
I'm at like 4:00, so I don't know.
So I really wish you would all when morons like we had somebody text Vince and say that this was going on, so I went and found it and booted him. But just ignore him because now there's like a whole page of people talking to him that I now lost a bunch of questions. So just ignore those idiots like that. You responded to him is actually what this. So this person's like a complete loser that has nothing else better to do than to come into a chat and act like a moron. Like, I've never understood the desire by some people to show everyone else that you're a moron, right? Right. I'm a big believer in free speech and freedom of all types of things. And you have every right to show how stupid you are. It doesn't make it a good idea, but you have a right to be a moron. But when people respond to these morons, it makes our product less effective. And it causes us to miss legitimate questions. So I would ask again, that people just ignore losers that come to the chat because that's what he wants. He wants you to respond and get worked up. Just ignore the idiot, and we'll boot him. We had somebody text 2 people. Somebody texted Vince. Somebody texted me. We dealt with it. Just ignore them.
That's great.
That's what that.
I'm not down there, so I didn't see what.
That's what he wants. And if I go down there to deal with it to kick him out, then I get booted. And not only did I get booted, but I also lost even more space because of all the chats that people use.
How far down did you end up getting?
I'm down at 424.
Oh wow. Okay, I'm gonna have to pile through this because I got to get going.
Yeah.
Soon. Kevin says also Austin, Lindsey, Keys, Davis, Wilkins are all senior plus. Do you have draft projections for them? Look, I think all that's going to change.
You've got like 6, 20, 15 career catches with the first 2 guys. The last guy's got 7 career catches. Like
right.
Let's see how they play this year. I think at least 2 of those guys are going to. Well, at least 3 of those guys are going to be gone after this year, in my opinion.
Yeah,
1 or 2 of them will be back.
Nolan says, I know Polian takes a lot of heat, but his recruiting of Polynesian Hawaiian players has been very impactful. Those guys play with some fire. I'd be happy to see that pipeline continue for many years.
Why would you assume that it wouldn't just because Brian Polian's not there? Like that's the myth that it's like people say, well, I don't want to ever move on from Kelly because the alternative is Ty Willingham or Charlie Weiss or Bob Davie. Why is that the alternative? Like, I'm sorry. You know who else has kind of had some good times out there? Alabama, right? They don't, I mean, you hire a good coach, you have a great product, and you put the effort to go out there, you're going to be fine. So is that a plus if Brian Polian can recruit that state? Sure. I mean, look at it. Meyer Tungavaloa, Maris Luafau. It's been great, Manti. But again, Charlie Weiss had a lot more to do with Manti Te'o than people really want to give him credit for. But, yeah, I mean, but his number one responsibility still needs to be able to coach stinking special teams at a high level. If he does that, then great.
Yeah.
But I'm also not keeping him because he can recruit the state of Hawaii. He's got to coach better.
I have found all of the
You're now working through all that stuff?
Yes, I am. So if you see something, please, by all means.
No, I'm still working through.
Then there may not be a whole lot left then.
Yeah. Where are you at?
4:30.
Okay, Irish Mike. What happened to Brendan Clark? Vince, you said actually today was the first day that we actually saw Brendan going through drills.
So he was going through the quarterback-specific drills when it was just the quarterbacks. He didn't get any team time, and he did not throw any like one-on-ones or anything like that. But in the past, he was just going through FSA, like the warm-up period. But today he actually did some quarterback-specific drill work. So I think they're slowly kind of bringing him back to being, fully go at this point. But I saw him throw one ball. It was like, clearly his arm wasn't hurt.
Right.
Because he still has a rocket attached to
this
his
was
shoulder.
Vince's check. He goes, Clark is going through drills. Rocket launcher still attached to his shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes out of his hand like, whoa. I mean, I can see why he was recruited. Let's just put it that way. The man has a gun on his arm. There.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Nathan Lytle, did you guys see the recent interview recently with Xavier Watts at his high school? He had a Notre Dame t-shirt on. Do you think maybe that's a sign of good things to come? No, I wouldn't read into that. Do I think Notre Dame's got a chance to get him? Yes. Do I think it's trending more to Notre Dame than has it? Yes. But his team colors also, I mean, he'd look a little weird with the practice jersey on and this bright red shirt sticking out because their colors are like navy blue and yellow or black and yellow. Yeah. So I think it's just probably more about it just fits, and it was a breathable shirt. So I think that had a lot more to do with it than, he's not going to give that away. It's probably just a shirt that fits. So no, I wouldn't. I mean, it was cool to see, but I wouldn't read too much into that. We did get a super chat from Garen Knutson. Good times ahead, Irish Nation. I agree.
Irish for Life says, how's the O-line look? Sorry if it's already been talked about. We did talk about it, so you can go back and take a look. A little up and down today, no question. Lug was out a little bit, and Madden has had better days. That's kind of the nutshell version. But definitely go take a look in the back, because we definitely did talk about it.
Justin Knox is very bullish on the O-line. He says Notre Dame has 3 NFL draft picks for 22, Patterson, Madden, and Lug. I'd be very surprised if one of those guys got drafted. I think 2 of them will get drafted. Definitely 1. I think 2 will. I'd be surprised if the 3rd guy got drafted. Just because of measurables. I mean, a 6'2", 306-pound guard. I don't care how good you are. We've seen All-American offensive linemen not get drafted or get drafted low. Because in the NFL, they don't care about that. They care about, do you have the measurables, the foot speed, all those kind of things. Caden Madden's a great player for Notre Dame this year. It doesn't mean he's an NFL player. Tommy Kramer didn't get drafted. So I wouldn't put too much. I don't think he'll get drafted. And
more stuff here.
Yeah. Craig Sebring, what can we realistically expect from Cone in game 1? I just want to see him manage the offense.
Yep.
Make a couple plays, but just manage the offense. Don't make any don't make too many big mistakes that hurt the team. I'd like to see him, what I'd like to see. And realistically, I think hitting a shot or 2, Vince, tacking down the field, hitting a couple shots, but just run the offense. I think that's the most important thing for me in week 1. Vince,
keep the chains moving,
be on the same page, and then when the shots come, take those shots.
Yep, absolutely,
no question about it.
Corey D says, Brian, in your article, you said Wilkins, Lindsey, Austin, and Davis are the core wide receiver group. Please tell me we're going to see a lot of Keys this year.
I didn't write that article. That was from Mike, and he was referring to veterans. But yes, Keys will be. We will see a lot of Keys, but Keys has also not been the last couple of days. But we will see a lot of him. There's no question about it.
Craig says, who will be our kickoff and punt returner this year? I have not seen them work kickoffs. I did see them work punts today.
It's going to be. I would imagine it's going to be Chris Tyree again.
I would imagine it's going to be Chris Tyree as well for kickoffs, and then punt return. Salerno was back there, but then so was Styles, and so was Austin, and so was Williams.
It's probably going to be Salerno, but we'll see.
I would agree with that. So
Ryan Mallon says, has anyone asked about Cardinal Tate's announcement date? No, but it's October 8th from what we have seen.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's a ways away. Holy cow.
Yep.
And I'm getting down there.
Let's see here. Stephanie Joyce has an interest. Gents, how did Kyle H's lower back tightness manifest?
Is that what
hobbled?
Kelly said it was?
Kelly said it was.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't see what happened, like the play that it happened, but I saw him come to the sidelines. He was kind of doubled over in a little bit of pain. They put like a cold towel around the back of his neck, like stuff like that. I just think he's working through some stuff. I wouldn't worry.
I've been told that this today was not the first day this has happened, Vince.
Right.
So I'm a little bit
hesitant,
but I also think this is why he has been a little bit limited in camp, because hey, you're not worried about him right now,
right?
You know what I mean? Right now your focus is on getting him healthy for the first game. That's going to be the big thing, and I think he could probably maybe use a couple of days off. Just my 100% pure 100% Brian Drew.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We did have a super chat. So it goes 76. Great question on the message board about Notre Dame's first drive about Florida State. What do you expect? Also, everyone should join the message board. Yeah. So somebody asked, predict the first play of the game. I went, Vince, 11 personnel outside zone with an RPO. Whether they'll throw the RPO or not, I don't know, but I think they'll go 11 personnel. They'll do a motion, they'll run outside zone, and they'll have an RPO built into it. Whether they hand it off or pull it, that wasn't the point, but they will because RPOs aren't a play call, right? The run is the play call. RPOs are built into the play call.
And I love the fact that you said 11 personnel because I think they're going to be in that a lot this year. Yeah, for sure.
And I think that is Jacob Hayden, strongest arm you've seen at Notre Dame. Strongest arm I've seen, I don't think it's a question mark. It's Malik Zaire. Just pure arm strength, right? I mean, RPMs and deep ball, just cannon, probably him. I say the strongest arms I've seen at Notre Dame, Vince, and this is 2010. No particular order is top 5. Dane Chris, Malik Zaire, Everett Golson, Phil Dracovic, and Brendan Clark would be my 5. Just pure strong. Oh, I'd have to bump out one of those guys for Brandon Wimbush. Just because they're going to arm strength.
Clark's got to be in that group.
Clark's in the top 5.
Yeah.
No, so let's see here. I'd have to boy. So definitely Dracovic, definitely Wimbush, definitely Zaire, definitely Clark. Who'd be that 5th guy? It's either Dane Christ or Everett Golson. I'd probably bump out Everett. Just arm strength.
Just strength. Like
Everett Golson throws the best ball that Notre Dame's had since Jimmy Clausen. I mean, just as far as when he's on, it's the prettiest thing you're ever going to see. But just arm strength, just arm power, that's my 5. And I'd probably go with Malik number 1. Oh, my goodness.
Sid Irish, bringing Pat Dillingham.
I don't think Brady Quinn had a real strong arm.
Yeah.
I don't think he had a bazooka for an arm. I don't. I think he was just more of a playmaker. I don't think he had a cannon for an arm. I really don't.
Omar wants to know, did I see anything from Kali today? Was he practicing? He was practicing. He would rotate in with the 3s. So, I mean, nothing really jumped out. I didn't see him making a bunch of plays or anything. So I think he's still a freshman figuring things out, to be perfectly honest with you. So,
Here we go. David Pollard says Notre Dame being ranked number 9 in the AP poll is absolutely stupid. We should be ranked ahead of Georgia, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, not to mention Iowa State and Cincinnati. I agree with all those except for Oklahoma. I ranked Oklahoma ahead of Notre Dame. I ranked Notre Dame ahead of Georgia and all those other teams. I think especially Texas. Texas A&M wasn't as good as Notre Dame last year, and they lost their quarterback and 4 starting offensive linemen. I'm just saying. All right, so let's apply it somewhat fair. But Oklahoma, I actually have as I think my preseason number 2 or 3 team, I believe. And then Stephanie Joyce says, "This is great. This is what I was laughing at. Looks like we need a GoFundMe to buy Kyle some massages." If you haven't been paying attention to the news, that's rarely a good idea. So let's just let him go in and get some treatment with the Notre Dame training staff and avoid any massage drama. Okay,
that's great.
Or potential drama. So yes, but I love Stephanie's immediate thought was GoFundMe for I think that's awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
I think he'll get
Stephanie.
plenty.
Yeah, and he'd be getting massages if we did a GoFundMe for that. He'd have enough money to pay for massages for the rest of his life.
Yeah,
Notre Dame fans would come correct on that one.
I mean, if we can get GoFundMe going for massages for you and me, that would be. I'm all about it.
Yes. Yes. Caleb Robbins, Notre Dame will run the ball early and often. We will see the running game to help out Jack. First play of the game will be out of 11 personnel handoff tackle. So we're kind of on the same page, Caleb.
Yeah.
Because I said 11 personnel outside zone. So, yeah, we're kind of on the same page. So I can't say I disagree with you there. Sid Iris says, I think I'd like to see a deep shot first play. Craig Sebring, with all these changes, changing conferences, do you think Notre Dame is forced to join one? No, and I think we are going to do it. We're going to, because I've been getting asked that. I got asked. I went on an Oklahoma radio show today, and we were asked about that too. So I think we should do a show on that here very soon, Vince. All right, so I'm making that note.
Okay. Sorry, Stephanie's back in the house, and she's nice. Comment on that.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. Have you ever seen a story that involved football player and massage turn out well? Have you ever seen it? No. So we're going to have him be with the trainers and the training staff, and they can hire a professional masseuse to come in under the supervision of the normal program. We're going to go from there. This show has gone completely off the rails.
It's gone completely off the rails.
Bronx ND fan, how does MTA look since returning to the team?
Great.
You said great today, right?
I think he's in his natural position.
One of the things you said is him and Jason Adamiola had a couple meet me at the quarterback parties in team today.
Yep.
Yeah. All righty. And then last one, double fake bomb to Lindsey. Well, I think he meant fake. Double take bomb to Lindsey. Unleash the speed. And I think that right there was the topic of my midweek musings yesterday, which referred to, I think people are going to be surprised by how fast this team is, Vince. And you saw it today. I mean,
no question.
Some of these guys need to play better, and make, but so far speed wise, that's that this team can fly. So that's going to do it for today's show before we go down too far of a rabbit hole. But everyone, thanks for joining the show today. Thanks for all the questions. Leave us a like, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. If you're listening via podcast, leave us a 5-star review. Try out Built Bar, 10% off your next purchase, your full next purchase. You can see in the description bar below. Use the promo code Irish Breakdown. Sign up for the message boards. It's been a really good product. It's improving. A lot of people signing up. We've had we've almost doubled our numbers in the last week and a half. So I'm very excited about that. Really excited about the things that we're doing. We're going to keep growing. We're putting our full content plan together. If you have an idea, we actually have a content plan suggestion thing going on the message board. We got some really cool stuff planned for content. Most of it will be on the website. A couple things are going to be board-only things that are going to be sort of diving real deep into the X's and O's. Stephanie, thank you. I'm glad that you have forgiven me. William Wolf is this year. We finally get to see Kevin Austin deliver. Love the channel. We'll talk about that even more. But yes, if he is healthy, he will be a game changer for Notre Dame this year. So we'll be back tomorrow for Vince's favorite day of the week. Friday free for all. Yep, Friday free for all for Notre Dame mailbags. Everybody have a great, safe rest of your day. Check out irishbreakdown.com, and we will talk to you all again very, very soon.